Chapter 1374. At this moment, a beam of rich green light shone brightly, and a thick aura of life origin instantly filled the air. It was the Spirit Emperor and Grasshopper. Ahem, Elder Wan Min Sheng. The two of them came together. Elder Wan felt that his status was lower than everyone present. After greeting them respectfully, he said in a friendly and gratified tone, "Little friend, it's great that you're here too." Everyone was stunned. The spirit tribe that just came was also related to this kid, and it sounded like they had a deep relationship. Could it be that if that was the case, this little fellow's karmic laws are really quite complete? Everyone focused their attention on Wan Min Sheng. Their eyes were filled with pure merit chi, which was enough to form a golden body of merit. It was so rich that it could not be dispersed. This kind of merit chi seemed to have been combed and recognized, and it was faintly related to the Great Tao. Yuanshi, Jane, Xuandi, and Tong Tian were surprised. Others had not become saints and could not feel it, but the four of them were real saints. How could they not feel it? This Wan Xingming already had the foundation of a saint in his body. The four of them knew very well what this meant. This was the Great Tao's holy sound. In other words, this person would become a saint sooner or later, this was for sure. And it was the kind of unspoken rules, which could not be changed. No one could change it. It was as if he had a golden mouth and jade words, and had already determined his future from the very beginning. But the Great Tao had been chaotic for so many years. How could such a thing happen? Besides, even a Tao ancestor did not have the right to casually promise a saint. What was going on? The series of unforeseen events that had happened today, why was it so strange? In particular, what had happened to Wan Minxing had completely confused all the mighty figures present. Since ancient times, such a thing had never happened. Yuanshi said lightly, "Human tribe, Wu people, demon tribe, spirit tribe, Azura tribe, Taoist tribe, West." As he was speaking, dragon and phoenix cries sounded in the air, and auspicious chi filled the sky. A golden dragon, a phoenix, and a qilin flew over, its four hooves stepping on auspicious clouds of virtue as it galloped over. Ancestral dragon, primordial phoenix, and qilin. They turned into two men and one woman, standing in front of everyone. "Sorry, I'm a bit late," the primordial phoenix said coldly. The qilin and the ancestral dragon looked proud as if they were saying that they should have been late. The strong had the right to make others wait. "You should wait for us. We shouldn't have waited for you first. That's why we came late at the last moment. It's only logical, reasonable, and natural. Are you angry? Let me ask you, are you angry?" Everyone's expression was cold. These three fellows are a little annoying. Ancestral Gragon and the other two, on the other hand, did not have any scruples at all. They acted as if there was no one around them. Shi Feng looked around and saw Zhuxiaoyan. She suddenly smiled and said, "This little girl is so cute." As he spoke, he was about to step forward. The Grand Master of Heaven took a step to the left without a trace and blocked in front of Zhuxiaoyan. His gaze was calm as he looked at Shi Feng and said, "This little girl is indebted to Jia School. I once promised that I will bear the karma on her." Shi Feng stopped in her tracks. Then, her gaze suddenly became exceptionally sinister. She stared at the Grand Master of Heaven and said indifferently, "Senior Brother Shangqing, ever since you reappeared, you have become more and more nosy." The Grand Master of Heaven smiled, and his gaze suddenly became sharp. "You have a problem with that?" Shi Feng revealed a warm smile and said indifferently, "I'm afraid that your Jia school can't bear my karma." "It's not up to you to say whether you can bear it or not. You have to prove it with facts. However, I welcome you to try." The Grand Master of Heaven did not retreat. Primordial Beginning frowned and said, "Are you a warmonger? How many people have you offended since you came here? It's as if the entire world owes you. Behave yourself." The Grand Master of Heaven said angrily, "What right do you have to talk about me? Back then, you owed me." Primordial Beginning flicked his sleeves and said, "Enter the palace and take a seat." As soon as Primordial Beginning said that, everyone's expressions instantly became solemn, interesting, and serious. Their eyes revealed longing and inexplicable uneasiness. Take a seat. The weight of these two words was too heavy. The difference between having a seat and not having a seat was huge. Before the primeval Lord of Heaven could finish his words, a purple mist suddenly surged. At this moment, the door of the Purple Cloud Dao Palace seemed to suddenly open. However, in reality, no one was able to enter. This was because an otherworldly power was circling back and forth at the entrance of the palace. However, that power did not affect one's vision. In the blink of an eye, everything inside could be seen at a glance. There was nothing that could not be seen. In fact, apart from Suo and his wife, everyone else was clear about the situation inside the Purple Cloud Dao Palace. After all, to them, what they had dreamed of countless times in the middle of the night was only a futon in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace. A futon in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace was the seat of a saint. This was an ironclad rule that everyone knew. As long as one sat down in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace, one would be as old as the heavens and the earth, as old as the sun and the moon. Even if one's body was immeasurable, one would not be destroyed. A saint would not die. Jia-in looked at the futon inside and sighed softly, "Junior brother, do you regret it?" Zhuan-Ti, who was beside him, said indifferently, "Since you have already done it, you won't regret it." Jia-in sighed and smiled, "I'll accompany you." Zhuan-Ti said indifferently, "If you accompany me, won't I disappear for nothing? If you accompany me, I will die." Primordial Beginning, Tong Tian, Jia-in, Zhuan-Ti, Hudu, Demon Emperor Jun, Dong Huang, Tai, Demon Ancestor Luoho, Demon Empress Shihi, Ancestor Mingi, Chan Xing, Emperor Ling, Wan Minxing, Suo Xiaonian, Ancestor Dragon, Primordial Phoenix, and Qilin. A total of 18 people were looking at the Purple Cloud Dao Palace. At this moment, the palace was empty. There were only a few futons and a few pillars. Apart from that, there was nothing else. The so-called Dao lecture in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace did not even have a table. There was only an empty futon at the top. It was only slightly taller than the other futons. There was no difference between the rest. Suo looked at the empty hall and said in Suo Xiaonian's ear, "Is this the legendary gathering place of the saints? It's too simple and crude. Even our primary school in the Astral Soul's mainland has much more comfortable facilities than this place. Even if there's no sofa, at least there are a few armchairs." Suo Xiaonian rolled her eyes and said, "This is something from many years ago. It's inevitable that it's a little backward. If it can be compared with modern facilities. It's strange, right? You're trying to compare something that happened tens of millions of years later with something that happened tens of millions of years ago. You're really interesting." Suo Xiaoduo suddenly understood and said, yes, I'm too picky. It's my fault. But there's not even a folding chair. It's too unreasonable." Suo Xiaonian sighed and said, "Shut up. I guess folding chairs hadn't been invented yet." Yuanshi, Jane, Tong Tian, Zhuan-Ti. Everyone was speechless. The question and answer between the two of you, the weirdness of the question and answer is one thing. But your answers are too unexpected. It really caught us off guard. However, since the beginning of the world until now, who dared to complain that the futons in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace were simple and crude? In fact, there was not even a single word of discussion. Only this pair of weirdos stood outside the Purple Cloud Dao Palace and complained about the facilities in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace. She complained about not having a sofa, a folding stool, and an armchair. Do you want me to arrange a bed for you inside? Is that okay? Okay. Little did they know that if someone really made this suggestion, Swa Xiao Duo would definitely raise both hands and agree. Great. Humanizing. Awesome. Unfortunately, no one suggested that. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but be stunned. There had always been only 7 futons in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace. There was one that was slightly higher than the others, and there were 3 below it. This was a universally acknowledged law. But now, when everyone looked inside, they saw that it was a serious matter. There were not only 6 futons outside the main seat, but there was 1 on top and 9 below. 5 on one side and 4 on the other. Everyone's expression was complicated. What's going on? Is it going to expand? There was still the aura of the Tao ancestor lingering in the Purple Cloud Dao Palace, but the Tao ancestor had never appeared. After the 9 clans split and the way of heaven was incomplete, the Tao ancestor had disappeared for a long time. No one knew where he was now and what he was doing. In fact, it was easy to understand. The ancestral land was originally one. It was like a person. It was complete. However, the ancestral land had suddenly split into 9 continents. It was no different from a person suddenly being divided into 9 parts. It was almost like being dismembered. What's more, the 9 continents were still alive. That way, 9 split heavenly Tao personalities would definitely be produced. It was already very painful for an ordinary person to have 2 split personalities, let alone be divided into 9. The Tao ancestor was in such a situation. He had merged with the Tao. The Tao ancestor was the way of the heavenly Tao, and the way of the heavenly Tao was the Tao ancestor. Once the great Tao split, the way of the heavenly Tao split as well. The Tao ancestor could not help but split that even if the ancestral land was restored and the continent was gathered again, the 9 continents had returned and reunited. However, the 9 personalities had gathered into one. Which one should be the main body? That was completely different from having thousands of incarnations. Before the return of the other clans and continents, the heavenly Tao of the 3 continents could still operate in a small area and affect it after tens of thousands of years of communication and reconciliation. However, now that all of them had returned, the most direct result, or rather, the current situation was a mess. Given the current state of the Tao ancestor, according to modern medical theory, it was like there were 9 serious schizophrenic personalities in a body. Moreover, these personalities were arguing with each other every day, every minute, and every second. They were fighting for power. They all believed that they should have the final say and that they should have the control of this body. Under such circumstances, the Purple Cloud Palace no longer had a master. All the sages and mighty figures were well aware of this. However, without the suppression of the Tao ancestor, the Purple Cloud Palace had changed on its own. This kind of unexpected change was undoubtedly shocking and even shocking to everyone. Chapter 1375. Even Primordial Beginning and the others could not set up anything in the Purple Cloud Palace. However, the number of futons increased from 6 to 9. This in itself already explained too many problems. Even though the Tao ancestor was not here, everyone knew that the 9 futons represented the positions of the 9 sages. As for who set it up and who changed it, everyone knew what was going on. It must be an existence that surpassed the Tao ancestor. And it was best not to probe or suspect such an existence. Everyone cultivated all their lives to improve. Now, this powerful existence was undoubtedly the motivation for everyone to move forward. Everyone, the 9 positions are clear at a glance, Primordial Beginning said indifferently. Yuanshi said faintly, the position has long been decided. There is no need for any struggle. Whoever can enter and sit down is their own fate. He could tell at a glance that there was a powerful restriction at the door. As for the restriction, it was true that it couldn't stop them from barging in. However, the key question was who would be able to sit down after entering. That was the real problem that they had to face next. Let's go in together. Jiayin said. Let's go in together, Demon Ancestor Rahu said. Demon Emperor Jun's eyes flickered. He said together with Shiha, let's go in together. Primordial Beginning turned his head indifferently. His expression did not change. At the right moment, a white light flashed. The mystical aura lingering above the purple cloud palace's door suddenly dissipated. The 18 of them entered together. Everyone quickly entered the purple cloud palace. Their gazes focused on the futons on the ground. They saw the Taoist rhyme flowing on the futons. The Taoist rhyme aura on each futon was different. After all, they had just entered the purple cloud palace without a Tao ancestor in charge. Everyone did not act rashly and did not fight for the futons. At the level of the experts present, everyone knew that this kind of thing could not be snatched, and could not be snatched. Everything was predestined. It was not something that could be fought for by force. Primordial Beginning slowly walked past all the futons and hesitated. Tong Tian said angrily, sit. Sit in the first one. Why are you hesitating? Primordial Beginning rolled his eyes and said casually, did you not recognize me as your second brother? Tong Tian paused and immediately became furious. It's none of my business if you want to sit or not. Yuanshi snorted and finally sat down on the first futon on the right. The cattail hassock was originally emitting thousands of rays of light, but its aura was always calm. As Premier sat down, the rays on it were all hidden under his body. All of a sudden, the primeval Lord of Heaven sat still. However, his chi was changing subtly. Tong Tian snorted, walked to the front of Premier, and sat down on the first futon on his left. In an instant, the sword chi soared into the sky and then returned. Tong Tian also sat upright like a mountain. In just a few moments, two saints had already sat down. Jiayin was silent. He took a step forward and sat down on the primeval land. Just as Shunti was about to say something, he saw a flash of light on the futon opposite him. A woman's figure appeared on the futon out of thin air. For a moment, the light radiated in all directions and was extremely dazzling. The woman with the head of a human and the body of a snake was none other than Her Majesty, Sovereign Nuwa. Although Nuwa did not come in person, there was still a place for her here. The virtual shadow sat down on the futon with a surprised look on her face. Apparently, she didn't expect that there would still be seats available even though she didn't come. She slowly said, everyone, nice to meet you. Everyone greeted her. Then, Nuwa's figure disappeared from the futon. However, everyone knew that the futon had already been taken. Those who overstepped their boundaries would not only not be able to get the futon, but also become sworn enemies with Nuwa. Next, they could only choose the fifth one. According to the order, it should be Taoist Xuandi's turn to choose the fifth one. After all, he was the last saint present who hadn't taken a seat yet. Everyone turned to look at him. Taoist Xuandi pondered for a moment and said, fellow Taoist Hongyun, back then, you gave in to me once. Now, I'll give in to you again. Fellow Taoist, please take a seat. Everyone was moved when they heard this. This was the seat of a saint. How could Xuandi be willing to give it up? Changsheng took a deep breath and his face suddenly turned red. Karma. Giving in back then was a cause. Giving in now was an effect. After today, karma had disappeared. However, Xuandi's generosity this time still touched Changsheng. After all, although he had good intentions back then, he had done it unintentionally. If he knew that the futon seat was related to the position of a saint, he wouldn't have given it up no matter what. Now that Xuandi had given up the futon seat, he knew the meaning of the seat. The meaning of the two was naturally different. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Changxing stepped forward. A figure flashed and Patriarch Mingyi stood in front of him with narrowed eyes. A mere half-saint dares to take the seat of a saint. Taoist Xuandi said indifferently, "I'm the one who wants to give in." The meaning of his words couldn't be more obvious. If you objected, if you wanted to stop, you would be my enemy. Beside him, Jia Yin also raised his head indifferently. Mingyi snorted coldly. Under the combined aura of the two, he had to take a step back. Changxing only felt the pressure on his body suddenly disappear. He said gratefully, "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Under the envious and jealous gazes of everyone, he walked towards the fifth futon. At this moment, Changxing only felt that his life had reached the peak. The excitement in his heart could no longer be contained. His face was flushed, and his body was trembling slightly. Even his walking movements were a little out of shape and not nimble. The position of a saint. His lifelong regret. Now, he finally had a chance to reunite. Jane looked at Kundi with a sigh. Karma was important, but he still couldn't understand why Xuandi had given up the seat. Xuandi smiled bitterly but didn't say anything. Changxing had already walked in front of the fifth futon. He took a deep breath and said, "Everyone, thank you for giving in." As he spoke, he lifted his robe and was about to sit down. But at this moment, a dazzling golden brilliance suddenly appeared on the futon. The golden light formed a shield in an instant and bulged up forcefully, firmly holding Changxing's body. Even with the power of a half-saint, Changxing couldn't sit down. Changxing's embarrassment at this moment simply rose to the extreme in an instant. He couldn't sit down. He couldn't sit down. The opportunity had been given to him, but he couldn't sit down. Who could he blame? Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Changxing's face flushed red, and his eyes were full of disbelief and unwillingness. He exerted all his power and sat down with all his strength. If he couldn't sit on this futon today, he was afraid that he would become an eternal joke for thousands of years. However, no matter how hard he tried, even if he didn't stop self-destructing and shattering his primordial spirit, it was still useless. The golden light was eternal. It held Changxing in the air, silent and calm. "You can't sit down. There's no place for you here." Changxing's eyes were about to split open, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. But his eyes gradually became desperate. Chapter 1376. Changxing could feel that the resistance from the praying mat under his body was getting stronger and stronger. If he did not give up and continued to try, he might be sent flying. He let out a long sigh and finally straightened his body. He turned around and looked at the praying mat in front of him. His eyes were filled with despair. This was the biggest regret of his 2 lifetimes that he had been dreaming of. Could it be that sometimes, it would be there, and sometimes, it was hard to force it? After a long, long time, Toad Saint's heart was filled with complicated emotions. This sigh was truly full of twists and turns, soul-stirring. Even Sua Xiaoduo and Sua Xiaoyan felt bad for him when they heard it. It was not that he did not give him a chance, but he was useless when he was given a chance. Changxing stood there in a daze for a while. Finally, he laughed bitterly. "It's not that I gave it away, and it's not that I missed it. It's just that I can't do it." The bitterness in his words made everyone present feel even more bitter when they heard it. Mingyi let out a sigh of relief and said, "How can it be easy to get one's luck and strength? The position of a sage is useless if you lack anything. Is it something that anyone can get just because they want it? Hong Yun, after this attempt, you should give up, right? Changsheng stood there in a daze and did not say a word. Yuanzhi said lightly, why should I be disappointed? If you are not worthy of the position, why should I be disappointed? You are already lucky to have the chance to try. Why should I ask for more? Changsheng murmured. If I am not worthy of the position, why should I be disappointed? Why should I be disappointed? Dare I ask, great heavenly venerable, why am I not worthy? Yuanzhi said, the so-called sage is not something that can be achieved through hard work. My eldest senior brother became a sage because he had great achievements. He wrote books and established a theory. He enlightened the world and spread his ideas to the world. Only then can he become a sage. My third junior brother became a saint because he wanted to seize a chance of survival for the masses. Just this intention alone is already a great benevolence, which is why he could become a saint. Empress Hua risked her life to nourish the sky and save the entire world of living beings. How could she not become a saint with such great achievements? Receive and establish the Western sect. Make a great wish to enlighten the people of the world. Only after overcoming all hardships can one become a saint. Yuanzhi said, Hong Yun, what have you done for the world? What makes you a saint? How could it be so easy to become a saint with just a bit of luck, a bit of karma, and a lifetime of hard work? These words were like the evening drum and the morning bell. They were also like a huge mountain that pressed down on Changsheng's heart. What makes you a saint? How can becoming a saint be so easy? Changsheng's eyes were unfocused. He lowered his head in shame and muttered to himself, that's right. What have I done for all living beings? Why should I become a saint? Just because of a fortuitous encounter, a bit of karma, and a lifetime of bitter cultivation. How could he become a saint just by protecting himself and not daring to provoke any karma? How could he become a saint just by cultivating hard and ignoring the suffering of all living beings? How could he become a saint just by relying on his selfish safety and accumulating cultivation strength? Then there were too many people in this world who were qualified to become a saint. After a long time, Changsheng finally sighed and said, what the great heavenly Lord said is right. I am indeed not worthy. These words were spoken with incomparable difficulty, with incomparable reluctance, and incomparable bitterness. However, there was also a trace of relief and understanding mixed within. Yes, I am indeed not worthy. Changsheng turned around and quietly walked to the corner of the Purple Cloud Palace. He sat cross-legged in the corner and did not move. This trip to the Purple Cloud Palace was a great opportunity and great joy. At this moment, he had lost all his face and even had thoughts of suicide. However, he still did not leave. Yes, I am not qualified to become a saint. However, since I am already here, I want to hear what you have to say. I, Red Cloud, have been reborn. Now, I'm not just Red Cloud anymore. I'm also Toad Saint. I'm a living being in the Wizard Alliance's territory. Even if I have to risk my life, I have to do something for the land where I live. It could be considered as my only counterattack to the sentence I'm not worthy that judged me for life. Changsheng Hongyun's dejection did not attract more attention from the people present. Everyone's focus was naturally on the empty fifth futon. Di Jun and the others' eyes were burning. Everyone wanted to sit on it, but no one dared to. With Changsheng as an example, who dared to act rashly? If they could not sit on it like Changsheng, wouldn't it be embarrassing? However, if they did not try, they would inevitably regret it for the rest of their lives. What if they succeeded? At this moment, Tong Tian suddenly said, Sister Hutu, sit. No one objected to Tong Tian's suggestion. Hutu opened the reincarnation with her own body. This kind of merit was unprecedented. It was not inferior to Empress Hua's. Hood's eyes were slightly complicated. She murmured, "That year, I resolutely sacrificed myself to reincarnate for the sake of Wu people. This willingness was mixed with too much selfishness. How could I sit on such a noble seat? Selfishness is not a sin. Sister's heroic deeds in those days have benefited generations of people. No one can deny the boundless meritorious merit." Yuancher said, "Sister Hudu, please sit." Hudu took a breath. She walked forward slowly and sat down calmly. Golden light radiated and merged into her body. Hudu sat on the futon steadily. She was solemn and elegant. The toad saint let out another sigh from the corner. It closed its eyes that it had just opened. He wanted to see if Hudu would be like him, or if she could barely sit on it with all her strength. However, after a glance, he felt that he was the only one who suffered a greater blow. At this moment, the 5 seats had been determined. Next was the 6th seat. Yuancher said, "My eldest senior brother has indeed left this starry sky. However, he has left his inheritance. His seat should not be left to others." Everyone was surprised. They all narrowed their eyes. "You want to keep an empty seat?" Tong Tian said, "Eldest senior brother does have a successor here." Holding back the grievance in his heart, he pointed at Sua Xiaoduo and said, "Xiaoduo, come and sit here." Sua Xiaoduo was stunned. He pointed at his own nose and said in disbelief, "Me? Of course. This." Sua Xiaoduo looked at the futon. To be honest, he was a little disgusted. It was just a lousy thing. At most, it had a little light effect. Look at you guys fighting for it. You guys are so ignorant. However, under the gaze of Yuancher and Tong Tian, Sua Xiaoduo had to take Sua Xiaonian's hand and walked over. He muttered softly, "My cultivation is shallow. How can I sit on such a high-class seat?" Tong Tian insisted, "Just try it. No one is counting on you. What if you can sit down?" Yes, this was also the main reason why no one actually tried to stop him even though everyone had their doubts. Sua Xiaoduo sighed and said, "All right, I'll try it. I'm just a junior. I'm not afraid of losing face." Then, he took a deep breath and sat down on the floor. Boom! This time, the situation was completely different from that of the others. It actually caused an earth-shaking, mountain-shaking sound. The rumbling sound shook the void for a long time. Everyone was speechless. Yuancher's lips twitched and he looked at him strangely. "Aw, damn it!" Sua Xiaoduo screamed. Fortunately, he was in time and his mind was clear. He changed the word "damn it" to "damn it." Otherwise, he would have been beaten up. How could he be forgiven for saying such filthy things in the purple clouds Dao Palace? Sua Xiaoduo's face was distorted. He tried his best to stop himself from touching his butt. "Damn it, it hurts. It hurts so much. It feels like my butt has been split into 8 pieces." Just now, he saw Changqing fail to sit on the seat even after using all his strength. He more or less knew what was going to happen. The opportunity was right in front of him. Yuancher and Tong Tian had endorsed him. Since he had decided to try, he had to try his best. He had to use all his strength to sit down. His cultivation base was too low, and he was far from being able to match up to any of them. The possibility of him successfully sitting on the throne was close to zero, and Toad Saint was the best proof of that. Therefore, even though Sua Xiaoduo's expression didn't change, he had already secretly mobilized all of his cultivation and used all of his strength to concentrate all of his strength on his buttocks, and fiercely sat down. However, he did not expect that the recoil, the glow, and the power of the mysterious force would not be there. Sua Xiaoduo used all his strength and sat on the futon. Below the futon was the main body of the purple clouds Dao Palace. Xiaoduo's action was equivalent to an ordinary person using all his strength to fiercely sit down on the hard granite. The feeling at that moment was simply amazing. Xiaoduo had successfully used his butt to bear the strong recoil of all his strength. For ordinary people, even if they couldn't accept it, they would at most use their head to smash against a thick wall and bleed until they died. But for Xiaoduo to use his butt to sit on the ground, it was truly a strange action that no one had ever done before. It was a spectacle that made people gasp in amazement. The result of this was that the Purple Cloud's Dao Palace did not react at all. From the beginning to the end, it only made a loud sound, and all the strength was reflected back to Xiaoduo's butt. Xiaoduo felt that his butt had cracked. It was burning and painful. He opened his mouth wide and suppressed the scream that had already reached his throat. He tried to close his mouth, but the muscles on his face were twisted, showing the pain he was enduring. Damn it, this is not right. Where did the strength that could support his butt and prevent him from sitting down go? I am like a retard. I used my white and tender butt to sit on a rock that is at least 100,000 times harder than my butt, that I even sat down and made an earth-shattering sound. This is the Purple Cloud's Dao Palace. Does this count as blasphemy against a sacred place like the Purple Cloud's Dao Palace? When he sat down, everyone opened their eyes wide and did not blink. Then, their expressions were extremely interesting. Everyone had many years of self-restraint. When they encountered something, they were rarely surprised or shocked. No one could tell that they were shocked. Unless they could not help it, they would never laugh. However, this loud sound, this distorted expression, and that crisp cracking sound were simply too fucking ridiculous. This was the Purple Cloud's Dao Palace. There was actually such a weirdo here. Chapter 1377. In that instant, Changsheng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Fuck. Can it not be so unreal? What did this kid do to deserve this? What did he contribute to the world? What merit did he have? Others might not know him, but I do. Other than his cheap mouth, he's better than me in every other aspect. How can he be better than me in any other aspect? Why did he sit down just like that? How can he bully me like that? But that was not the end. Xiaoduo grimaced in pain. His butt was getting more and more painful, and there was no sign of it getting better. The strong self-healing ability of a high-level cultivator seemed to have been disconnected. Xiaoduo could almost conclude that the bones in his butt were 99% broken, or maybe even comminuted fractures. I can't even heal on the praying mat. Fuck. Finally, he could not help but stand up and say, Nian Mao, try sitting down too. I feel a little uncomfortable sitting down. Everyone was speechless. Xiaonian was surprised when she heard that. She asked, a little uncomfortable? Then, she hesitated and said, can I try? No one said a word. Why don't I try? Under Xiaoduo's urging, Xiaonian suppressed her uneasiness and changed seats with Xiaoduo. She sat down gently and frowned slightly. It's indeed hard and uncomfortable. She stood up as she spoke. After all, he did not ask her to do it. She was just helping her husband go through the motions. When they're outside, I have to give my husband face. This is a necessary act. Also, it's not that my husband is insensible or rude, but this praying mat is indeed uncomfortable. Everyone's eyes followed in Changsheng's footsteps and almost flew out. She sat down. She really sat down. She sat down so easily. Similarly, when the girls sat down, there was also no sign of any abnormalities. Everyone's expression was complicated. They all had the same thought. Is the praying mat broken? Then, something even more horrifying happened. Sua Xiao Duo vaguely felt that he couldn't sit on this cattail hassock. It wasn't because his butt would crack if he sat on it, but because he couldn't sit on it, or rather, he shouldn't sit on it. Sua Xiao Duo didn't take it too seriously. He didn't want to sit there anyway. Seeing that Sua Xiaonian had also stood up, she said, "This futon is not very comfortable to sit on, so we won't sit on it. I don't want to sit anymore. I don't want to sit anymore. No. Sit. Yes. Fuck." The 16 powerhouses present swallowed their saliva in unison and swallowed the word that they wanted to blurt out. This was the Purple Cloud Palace. One had to pay attention to one's appearance and demeanor. One must not speak fragrant words. Premier and Tong Tian sighed. "Eldest senior brother, it's not that we don't want to help you, but this brat. He doesn't feel comfortable sitting there." It was all the Purple Cloud Palace's fault for not preparing a sofa. Or a bed. If he were to lie down here, he would probably feel comfortable. Then, the Nether River Patriarch said, "Since the two of you feel uncomfortable, let me give it a try." Before anyone had time to react, he, who was the closest to the seat, dashed over and sat down. "Bastard!" The dozen or so people who finally reacted shouted angrily in unison. Even if he didn't want to sit, there were so many people here. How could it be Nether River's turn? Just as they were about to attack. Boom. After a loud explosion, the Nether River Patriarch screamed. Blood splattered everywhere. A force suddenly burst out from the cattail hassock and sent the Nether River Patriarch, who was about to sit down, flying. The power of the sudden appearance of the power was already appalling, and the speed of the reaction was even more astonishing. The combined power of a dozen people had only hit the afterimage of the Nether River Patriarch that was sent flying. Boom. Zhuan Ti smiled. "Then everything is worth it. Immeasurable celestial venerable." Jane sighed. Then, Zhuan Ti sat down behind Jane and said, "It's the same for me behind senior brother." Jane nodded slowly. His eyes were focused. No one knew what he was thinking. The remaining people's expressions did not change, but their hearts trembled violently. Zhuan Ti did not sit on it. What did this mean? One of the original 6 saints had been eliminated. This was simply an earth-shattering matter that shook the foundation. The 6 saints were the pillars of the world. Now, one had left and one had been eliminated. Half of the sky had collapsed. Even Zhuan Ti could not sit on the 7th cattail hassock. The remaining people's hearts were thumping. They were stunned for a few seconds, but no one moved. Then, the primordial phoenix and the ancestral dragon took a step forward at the same time. Then, the ancestral dragon hesitated and took a step back. He did not expect the primordial phoenix to take a step back at the same time. Then, they smiled awkwardly. "You do it. You do it." Everyone was stunned. This might be the only time in their lives that the ancestral dragon and the primordial phoenix were being modest to each other. They did not expect it to be the Saint Throne meditation cushion, that it was simply earth-shattering and unprecedented. "You do it." The ancestral dragon retreated to the ranks. The primordial phoenix bit her lip and walked towards the Saint Throne. Her heart was pounding. "I'm afraid I can't sit down either." With a burst of golden light, the primordial phoenix's premonition became reality. Indeed, she could not sit down. She walked to Changxing's side with an ashen face and sat down silently. Her face was dejected. Beside him was the half-dead Mingyi. The primordial phoenix was sitting between the two of them. Then, the ancestral dragon went up. He also had no chance. He flicked his sleeves and left, sitting at the side unhappily. Then, the Qilin also could not sit down. The ancient god clan was completely wiped out. The 3 of them sat in a row and looked at each other. While they were depressed, they felt an inexplicable sense of comfort and balance. Hee hee. You didn't sit on it either. I'll let you. It had to be said that this kind of thinking was simply a little strange. Changsheng, who could not sit on it in the beginning, looked much more comfortable. Indeed, I'm not the only one who can't sit on it. These fellows are all stronger than me, but none of them can sit down. Waha! What the hell was this inexplicable joy? Those who had already sat down were not in a hurry. Those who had already proven that they could not sit on it were not in a hurry. Instead, they were all looking forward to it. It would be best if none of you could sit on it. Putting everything else aside, Demon Ancestor Rahu should be hanging by a thread. Wahahaha! The ancestral dragon said directly, Lord Demon Ancestor, sit. Demon Ancestor Rahu was stunned for a moment and hesitated for a moment. He remembered that he only had monstrous sins and did not seem to have any so-called merit, so he said angrily, I don't care. He did not even try. He walked to the ancestral dragon's side and sat down. He turned his head and said, say one more word. After you're done, I'll wait for you outside the door. The ancestral dragon was furious. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Who are you trying to scare? Those who had not tried yet were only Di Jun, Tai Yi, Shi He, Ling Huang, and Wan Minxing. However, there were still 3 futons. Everyone had mixed feelings about this. Could it be that 3 of these 5 could become saints? This. Demon Emperor Jun took a deep breath and stepped forward. Shi He and Tai Yi took a step forward, one on the left and one on the right. The Demon Emperor slowly sat down. This time, the resistance of the golden light was not strong. However, Demon Emperor Di Jun tried his best and still did not sit on it. He was only halfway there when the golden light blocked him. Shi He quietly reached out and grabbed the Demon Emperor's left hand, activating her demon power. Emperor Jun sat down another 3 inches and was only a short distance away from sitting on the cattail hassock. Dongwang Tai Yi reached out and grabbed the Demon Emperor's right hand, activating his demon power. The 3 of them worked together. Demon Emperor Jun finally sat down firmly on the praying mat. No matter how he sat on it, no matter how he would be bounced up when he let go, and no matter how one of them sat on the ground without a futon. In any case, he sat down. The 7th saint position belonged to the demon clan. Demon Emperor Jun's face was a little red. He held his wife with his left hand and his brother with his right. He forced a smile and said, sorry. He did not dare to let go. If he did, he would be bounced out. Damn it, my saint position is so awkward. He was natural and graceful, smiling sweetly. There was nothing shameful about helping her husband. Donghuang Tai Yi's hand was held by Di Jun. He sat on the ground of the Purple Cloud Palace with a cold expression. He lowered his eyes and did not look at anyone. He felt that it was a little embarrassing. Others have 1 person each, but the demon clan has 3 people each. It's fine if one of them sits on the futon, but the other 2 are sitting on the ground. However, my hand is held by Big Brother and can't be separated. As soon as I separate, Big Brother is bounced out of the saint position. Damn it. Is there a spring in your saint position? Chapter 1378. So far, there were only 2 holy thrones left, but there were still 2 people who had not tried to sit down. They were Emperor Ling and Wan Minxing. With the opportunity in front of them, they had to try even if they knew the chances were slim. Emperor Ling took a deep breath and walked over. As soon as he sat down, the golden light glowed. Then he could no longer sit down. Emperor Ling had expected this result, so he was not disappointed. With a wry smile, he stood up and sat down among those who did not have a futon. Wan Minqing also wanted to follow. With so many experts in front of him having their halberds broken, Elder Wan felt that he was just a junior, so he didn't want to embarrass himself. Yuanshi opened his eyes and said, "Now." Sua Xiaoduo interrupted in surprise, "Everyone here has tried. Elder Wan, since you are here, why don't you sit down and try?" Wan Minqing's face froze. He was forced to come here by Emperor Ling. The spirit clan was not good at fighting. Since ancient times, there had been few outstanding experts. Wan Minqing, who could reach the half-saint level, was one of the most outstanding figures in the spirit clan in the past millions of years. Emperor Ling forced him to come here to show his claws and teeth to the other clans. Don't think that the spirit clan is easy to bully. Look, there are descendants of the spirit clan who have reached the half-saint level. If you want to touch the spirit clan, you should think twice. It would be best if the other clans were afraid of the spirit clan. In this era of great competition, if the spirit clan did not have enough strength, it would become the target of public criticism. It was necessary to show its strength. But neither Emperor Ling nor Elder Wan had any intention of getting the holy thrones. Even Emperor Ling's attempt was behind the others. It was just a fluke. Now that even the Soul Emperor couldn't sit on it, Elder Wan naturally decided to sit on the Soul Emperor's side. How could he have a seat on the praying mat? It was better to stop daydreaming. However, at this moment, Sua Xiaoduo's shout made them feel really awkward. How can I, this? Wan Minqing's face was full of embarrassment. However, Sua Xiaoduo's words were out of goodwill. Moreover, he was pushing the opportunity to Wan Minqing. A wisp of thought flashed across Tongtian's face, and he said in a low voice, "Since he's here, it means that we're fated. There's no harm in trying." Hearing Tongtian's words, Wan Minqing politely and cautiously said, "That's it. I dare you." Then, he quietly came to the side of the eighth praying mat and sat down cautiously. Golden light flickered, and his reaction was no different from the others before. Just as everyone thought that Wan Minqing would return empty-handed, a mysterious yellow light surged from Wan Minqing's body, clashing with the golden light. In less than 3 seconds, the golden light dimmed and fused into Wan Minqing's body. Then, Wan Minqing calmly sat down on the eighth sacred seat. The primeval Lord of Heaven and Earth looked up and said softly, "The first sunflower between heaven and earth is extraordinary. Moreover, it will be endowed with immeasurable merit. It is only natural that it is worthy of its position." Tong Tian and the others who had already sat down didn't have any special reaction, but those who couldn't sit down on the other side all widened their eyes. This was especially true for the Spirit Emperor. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets, as if they were about to shoot out of their sockets. At this moment, the Spirit Emperor's feelings couldn't be described with words. There was even a sense of confusion, as if he was in a dream. Who am I? Where am I? How did this happen? I didn't sit on it myself, but the juniors from my clan did. Even if Wan Minqing is a rising star of my clan, a rare talent, and has already reached the half-sage realm. That's a sage position. How did it end up with him? Who do you think I can reason with? Wan Minqing sat on the praying mat, but he felt uncomfortable all over. But then, the Tao aura and comprehension that continuously surged into his body occupied his mind. Today, everyone has gathered here because of heaven's perception. I believe you all understand the reason. The primeval Lord of Heaven said calmly, "This is the immeasurable tribulation, and also the clear heavenly tribulation. Everyone, all the clans are in the tribulation. After the Western sect reopened the heaven and earth, they went against the tribulation, and the heavens showed signs of going against the heavens. Now, the tribulation has become imperative, which means they have to go through the tribulation. All the living beings of the various clans are in the tribulation, and no one can avoid it. The primeval Lord of Heaven's tone was calm, but the resentment in it could be heard by everyone present. As sages, we were fine. However, you reopened the heaven and earth in the tribulation, and went against the heavens, causing the heavens to go against the heavens, and even dragged us in. Do you have nothing better to do? When everyone heard this, they were all dissatisfied in their hearts. Although you lost your sage position, you gained immeasurable merit for the Western sect by starting the tribulation. This is definitely not a loss, but what about us? Why should we be dragged into the tribulation by you? Originally, even if it was a tribulation, it was still only the living beings of the various clans and the disciples of the sect who participated in the tribulation. However, there was an additional heavens that went against the heavens, and it easily involved the lives and deaths of the various clans. This matter is simply immoral. After the tribulation, all the clans will be united. The primeval Lord of Heaven said faintly, since this matter involves the lives and deaths of the various clans, it is inevitable that the sages will end up in the end. But if it really reaches that stage, I'm afraid. The primeval Lord of Heaven felt really tired. It's also because of this that the tribulation sensed it and asked us to come here for a while. It's also the privilege of the strong, and it's also an exception. But this time, it's also the only chance. Previously, the Tao ancestor was in charge of the overall situation, and there was already a set of rules that could be followed. This time, when the tribulation began again, he originally thought that even if the Tao ancestor was not in charge, there would still be the eldest senior brother to take charge. Now, it seemed that it was his turn to control the situation. I have no experience. Moreover, the tribulation this time is more ferocious than the previous ones. It's such a big matter. Previously, even if they fought with each other, they had to take into account the relationship between the clans and leave some leeway to preserve a chance of survival. But now, life and death are at every turn. But who would be willing to see their own clan destroyed? Kundi, what have you done? Tong Tian was furious. Senior brother, don't be angry. Since the establishment of the Western sect, this is the only thing that we have gained some benefits from. Kundi was very handsome and had an outstanding bearing. He smiled warmly and said, I have paid the price of a saint's position. Isn't that enough? Bullshit. Tong Tian was furious. Do you dare to say that from the past until now, you have not considered the gains and losses as your priority? Never. Kundi spoke resolutely and decisively. Tongtian's sword aura overflowed and was about to erupt. Back then, the God-confirmed tribulation was a conflict between the three sects of the Eastern land. What does it have to do with you? Why did it become the prosperity of the Western sect after all this? You caused trouble everywhere, fanned the flames, and reaped benefits wantonly. In the beginning, you sought benefits and avoided harm, and you were successful in every endeavor. Could it be that you were wronged because you said that you considered the gains and losses first? Kundi's face was bitter. Senior brother, how long are you going to hide it? Kundi looked at Yuancher helplessly. Yuancher snorted and put on a straight face as if nothing had happened. He did not say a word and was extremely calm. Jia Yin sighed and said, Today, senior brother Shangqing mentioned the past with certainty. However, the truth is not something that can be explained with just a few words. Why don't we take advantage of today to make it clear and let the mighty figures of the various races here make a decision? Is it our Western sect that took advantage of the situation, or has it been a scapegoat for many years? Tong Tian sneered, Oh. I know that the Western sect has a silver tongue and golden lotuses. I want to hear how you, the Western sect master, can reverse the past with a few words. The God-confirmed tribulation seems to be the Western sect that has taken advantage of us and obtained manpower. In the future, we will spread the Eastern land and lay the groundwork for the prosperity of the Western sect. However, there are too many schemes involved. There are so many that it is impossible to count. Jia-in sighed softly. If not, why would my junior brother make such a sacrifice today? Tong Tian said angrily, in the end, it's still just an excuse. You senior brothers can cover up everything by saying that you have sacrificed. Is this what you mean by being the scapegoat? Who are you trying to fool? Why don't I believe it? Could it be that the Western sect has been wronged? Jia Yin's expression did not change. He said in a deep voice, Senior brother is right. We have indeed been wronged. Ha ha ha. The Jia sect is weak. Their luck has plummeted. Senior brother Jia Yin, what you said, ha. Jia Yin smiled bitterly. Senior brother, have you been living in resentment all these years? Didn't you think about it carefully? Back then, the world was fine. Why did you sign the God role? Just to help the heavenly courts. Just to gather the people on the investiture of the gods. What do you mean by the 12 golden immortals have not broken through to the zenith heaven for 1,000 years and caused the tribulation? What kind of ridiculous reason is that? How can the tribulation be triggered by golden immortals? Senior brother primordial beginning, do you really want me to explain the grudges between the three of you? The primordial beginning closed his eyes and said, tell me. Chapter 1379. Zhuin Ti sighed and said, back then, the 10,000 immortals of Jia school came to court and looked down on the world. However, it's an indisputable fact that the disciples of Jia school often cause trouble in the world. Tong Tian, you claim that you teach everyone without discrimination. However, it's also an indisputable fact that you accept but don't teach. In the long run, it's inevitable that the world will be imbalanced. Jia school was already the #1 sect in the world back then. The people in armor had a strong ability to reproduce and reproduce quickly. If we continue to expand, the living beings will definitely be plunged into misery and the universe will be imbalanced. That's why the calamity started. That's why the original intention of the God-confirmed tribulation was to defeat Jia school. As the sect master of Jia school, how can you stay out of it? After a series of changes, there was the matter of the God role. The three sects entered the calamity and established the heavenly courts. Since the three sects have caused the great tribulation of heaven and earth, whether the Western sect enters or not is nothing to you. However, if we really don't enter, we will really be excluded from the chessboard. The decline of Jia school is more in line with the interests of the Western sect. Jia Yin looked a little worried. Hence, there was the battle of the gods back then. The two of us entered the eastern lands several times, and 3,000 red chi returned to the west. The four saints would kill the immortals. How many people in Jia school with high Dao skills have really died? Even those whose bodies have perished have entered the God role. What's the loss? There are indeed innocent and kind people who perished in the battle. There are even many. However, when have the true upper echelons of Jia school been injured? Even if your senior brother Shangqing has been banished, have you ever seen anyone use the four immortal vanquishing swords and various treasures after so many years? Those things are connected to your senior brother Shangqing's spiritual will. With a thought, you can take them all back. How is this the path of a loser? Did the senior disciples of Chan school suffer any losses? They just created some karma in the human world. That's all. In particular, I have to mention the Grand Supreme Laozi, the eldest senior brother of the three pure ones. The 3,000 mortal guests of the Jia school that the Western sect had painstakingly taken away from the calamity were educated and prepared to be the backbone. However, fellow Daoist Grand Pure One made a move based on local conditions. He used barbarians to control barbarians and turned the eldest disciple of the Jia school, Duobao, who had been protected long ago, into a Buddha and led that group. That group. Zhuan-Ti sighed. There was a hint of difficulty in his words. After all, they were all real disciples of the Western sect back then. Furthermore, when your second senior brother, fellow Taoist Yuqing, saw fellow Taoist Grand Pure One's actions, he imitated him like a bull and rushed a few disciples under him who agreed with the ideals of the Western sect. He forcefully occupied the important positions and shared the destiny and incense offerings of our sect. For so many years, the Western sect has been said to be prosperous. However, the disciples of Jie school and Chan school occupy more than 90% of the incense offerings in various places. Jie Yin smiled bitterly. Even if they have the name of the Western sect on the surface, how can their roots change? We are all Khanate cultivators. I only have one question for you. No matter how much you change and how much you experience, can you change this foot of yours? Everyone coughed and avoided answering. Perhaps other things could be changed, but this foot could not be changed. On the other hand, senior brother Jiayin and I have lost our destiny because we forcefully crossed the mortal world several times as saints. The final result of the God-confirmed tribulation is that the heavenly courts were restored, Jia's school disappeared, the Grand Master of Heaven hid from the world, and the Western sect prospered. However, the disciples of Chan school and Jia school entered Buddhism and used the luck of the incense offerings of the Western sect to eliminate the evil aura of the Jia school of heaven. After 10,000 generations, they will return. Otherwise, why would senior brother Shangqing appear here today? Shouldn't he still be imprisoned? Jia Yin sighed. Senior brother Yuqing, now that senior brother Shangqing's tribulation has passed and he has re-established Jie school, the disciples of the past have returned. Why has the spiritual intelligence shield not been removed? Primordial Beginning said with a straight face, this was set up by the Tao ancestor. How can we go? Jia Yin said, since everything has been said today, then senior brother Yuqing's disciples, shouldn't they return? Primordial Beginning said calmly, just as Taoist brother said, where are they? What name do they have? They have already spread the teachings of the Western sect for a long time. There's no need for them to return. Just like the treasures of Jia school, although they have returned to Jia school, the name of the Buddha will definitely exist forever. He will still spread the teachings of the Western sect. What's the difference between returning or not to this world and all living beings in the world for generations? Jia Yin sighed. The words of the Primordial Beginning were like a spear attacking a shield. After such a long time, it was already impossible to say who was right and who was wrong, who won and who lost. In this world, there was no constant right or wrong. For those in their realm, when had there ever been such a clear distinction between victory and defeat? Everything was just smoke. The rise and fall of the calamity was just a game. However, there was one thing that was different. Their roots had not changed. Your disciples were attached to us and enjoyed the incense offerings of all living beings. However, they were constantly strengthening your foundation. Although the Western sect seemed to be prosperous, it only bore a reputation. 70% of the benefits belong to you. Zhuan-Ti wanted to speak, but Jia Yin stopped him and shook his head. There was no need to say anything. What we want is to spread the teachings of the sect to the world. As for who will spread it, we don't care. Why should we care? Taking what each of them needed was the way to balance things. If the Western sect obtained the name and benefits, it would be another immeasurable tribulation that broke the balance. There was no need to explain those things word by word. Those who understood would understand. Those who did not understand would be left to him. The Grand Master of Heaven's body actually trembled. He questioned Primordial Beginning, second brother. Why didn't you say this before? After Zhuan-Ti and Jia Yin revealed the whole story, the spiritual intelligence shield in the Grand Master of Heaven's mind was naturally removed. After all, since he had already said it, there was no point in blocking it. The Prime of Tong Tian only felt that his mind was clear, and in that instant, too many things slowly flowed through his mind. Who are you calling second brother? Primordial Beginning rolled his eyes unhappily. He felt that he had broken his image, so he pulled a long face again and said calmly, "Back then, I really wanted to beat you up. If I don't, how can I think clearly?" Zhuan Ti said that he and Jiayin entered the mortal world as saints. Didn't eldest senior brother and I personally enter the mortal world? It's just to beat you up. Primordial Beginning pulled a long face. Heaven and earth will return to one. Clear the heavenly tribulation. Only the spirit race will be left. That's right. Since it's a clear heavenly tribulation, then the countless right and wrong in the past will end in this tribulation. And for a long time, the ones who have the most grievances are the dragons, phoenixes, Qilins, the Azura Lich, the Western Sex Jia School, and naturally, the human race. Primordial Beginning said with a straight face, in such a clear heavenly tribulation, it's not surprising that a saint will fall in the end. Therefore, you can return at this time. Tong Tian took a deep breath, however, since I've already understood the cause and effect of my return this time. It's useless to understand. The situation is irreversible. Moreover, you're still unwilling to accept it. Primordial Beginning said with a straight face, you can let go of the countless years of conflict in your heart, but can your disciples let go? If they can't let go, how can they clear the sky? The great Tao is heartless. It's a rule that all living beings have feelings. The world of great competition is the time when karma ends. There are many things. Perhaps everyone feels that it's useless, but I've really exhausted my mind to sort out such a line. Novels are one-sided. Everyone has read it. Just laugh and scold. There's no need to take it seriously. Chapter 1380. Tong Tian was silent for a long time. His body was still trembling slightly, and he lowered his head slightly. Although he had regained his wisdom and understood the cause and effect of the past, Tong Tian was still uneasy. The original intention of the past was that the eldest brother and the second brother spent a lot of effort to control the situation in order to protect themselves. I can understand this intention. If I still insist that I don't understand, I won't be a saint. But it's still a pity for my disciples back then that they were all lives. They didn't know anything and were taught by me bit by bit. For thousands of years, they were by my side. Why did the situation suddenly change? Why did the whole world target them? Thousands of disciples of the Jia school died an unnatural death. On the immortal slaying array, on the 10,000 immortals array. Countless disciples sacrificed themselves for him, and he could still remember the shouts and cries in his ears. Master, I'm going. Which of my disciples isn't cute? Why did they trigger the heavenly tribulation? Thank you, eldest brother and second brother, for your love. Tong Tian sighed. But, I still can't calm down. It's hard to forget the enmity. Tong Tian sighed and said, this heart is hard to calm down. Tong Tian solemnly thanks my two elder brothers for your care and consideration, but I still feel that it's not worth it for my disciples. Even though the great Tao is heartless, it's still a life. The original intention of the Jia school is to seize a chance of survival, but they can't be saved. Yuanzhi said with a straight face, Tong Tian, you're a real person. True temperament, true meaning, but your truth is really not suitable for stirring up clouds and rain, not suitable for scheming. What's suitable for you should be willful, loyal, and righteous. You should be in the pugilistic world and travel the world. Yes, your true nature is a fatal flaw in the face of the great Tao of ruthlessness. It will only lead to a disaster. The most important thing for the heavenly Tao is to maintain balance. You're loyal and righteous. You've unintentionally expanded your GS school infinitely, but you've fundamentally broken the balance of living beings. I hope you won't forget this lesson. Eldest brother and I have thought that it's already the limit for you to go through the great God-confirmed tribulation. Yuanzhi said, after this tribulation, I hope you will be free from now on. Everyone fell into deep thought. Since time immemorial, the world has always been in balance. What's wrong with that? Jie asked. Even the demon ancestor, Styx, and Imperial June agreed with this statement. Yes, heaven and earth were in balance. The people were the people, and the various races were balanced. He would not allow anything to break the balance, nor would he allow any race that broke the balance to grow. At the same time, he would not allow any race to be completely destroyed. Sua Xiaoduo could not help but be moved. He said, if there is a world where all races are equal, where there is no restriction, and where the strong are respected, perhaps the hierarch's idea will be regarded as the truth. The saints smiled faintly. That kind of world. Since ancient times, when had there ever been such a thing? This kid was just spouting nonsense, making irresponsible remarks. Tong Tian sighed. There was a trace of yearning in his eyes. He said, if there really is such a world, my GS sect will definitely be the ruler of the world. However, at that time, the GS sect will no longer be called GS sect. Sui Xiaonian asked curiously, then what should it be called? The Tongtian sect leader was fascinated by the world that Sui Xiaoduo was talking about. He explained with a good temper, at that time, the GS sect should be called the Holy Sect of All Spirits. Holy Church of All Spirits. That's a good name. It's straight to the point and explains the root. Sua Xiaoduo praised from the bottom of his heart. Yuanzhi, Tongtian, Jane, Kundi, and Hudu all took a deep look at Sua Xiaoduo at the same time. Next was the meeting of the saints. What do you want to say about the life and death of all races? Styx's ancestor, who had recovered slightly, was the first to speak. The Ashura tribe will be the first to withdraw from the dispute. But after that, there was silence for a long time. The meaning of the various forces was obvious. The Ashura tribe had caused so much karma. Could you withdraw just because you said so? You don't look good, but you're dreaming. Styx's ancestor's eyes darkened. He said in a hoarse voice, the heavenly way is constant. Do you really want the Ashura tribe to be annihilated? Still, no one spoke. Everyone's face was extremely cold. Obviously, Styx's ancestors' past actions had angered everyone. Under such an immeasurable calamity, it was inevitable that he would be targeted. The Spirit Tribe. The Spirit Emperor had just spoken when his eyes turned to Wan Minxing. Obviously, the change of the saint position just now had changed the situation. In terms of personal power in this hall, although he was the Spirit Emperor, he was far less powerful than Wan Minxing when it came to the future direction of this immeasurable calamity. Wan Minxing pondered for a moment and said in a deep voice, the Spirit Tribe will go with the flow. Everyone nodded inwardly. This sentence of going with the flow had a deep meaning. It seemed to have made his position clear, yet he practically didn't say anything. The demon tribe will accompany you to the end. Rahu, the demon ancestor, raised his head. The demon tribe will never admit defeat. We can retreat by ourselves, but we won't allow others to sweep us out. The Taoist tribe is the human tribe. But since the two tribes have been separated, there's no need to mix them together. Yuanzhi said lightly, but the Taoist tribe promises that the saints won't take part in this immeasurable calamity. Tong Tian frowned and said, "Second brother, you only took yourself out." Yuanzhi said lightly, "No, I took you and me out. Are you not a Taoist tribe saint? Or do you want to deny my decision?" Tong Tian sighed heavily and was speechless. The Western sect. The Western sect. Jian wanted to say something, but he changed his mind after glancing at Xuandi. He said, "The Western sect. We won't take part in this immeasurable calamity." Buddha said, "The Wu people gradually declined at the end of the primitive age. Now our strength is far inferior to the other tribes. It's difficult for us to survive. Now we have to fight with all our strength. Otherwise, there will be no place for the Wu people in this world." Everyone was silent. Buddha's words were undoubtedly true. The Wu people were in such a situation now. If they didn't fight with all their strength, they would be overthrown by this immeasurable calamity. The Dragon tribe will never withdraw. The Phoenix tribe will never withdraw. The Kailan tribe will never withdraw. At this moment, Zhuo Duo saw that everyone was looking at him, and his sense of mission arose spontaneously. It seemed that he was representing the human tribe. In an instant, he felt a surge of hot blood. He spoke on behalf of the human tribe, impassioned, "If the human tribe can win, we won't take a step back. If we can't win, we won't fight blindly. We still have to retreat strategically." When everyone heard this, black lines appeared on their foreheads. "You're so generous. We thought you were going to fight to the death. But look at the result. Don't you know that your sudden flirtatious words have hit us in the back? What do you mean we won't fight blindly? Retreat strategically. Isn't it just running away if we can't win? What's the difference between your words and not saying anything?" However, the representative had already spoken. No matter how unreliable he was, he still had to hold it in. In the end, the prime of Tong Tian was the one holding the fort. The prime of Tong Tian said softly, "We, the Jia sect, don't care about life and death. We just want to have a clear mind. We want to take back what others owe us. We want to return what we owe others. After we settle our grudges, we will leave this world. We won't leave if we don't get back. We won't give up if we don't return an inch. Ending karma is our goal for the rest of our lives." The prime of Tongtian's toughness made the primeval Lord of Heaven and Jane feel helpless. All the reasons were explained clearly to him, and he even admitted it. However, for the prime of Tong Tian, all the reasons were not as important as the word love. "I understand. I understand. I understand. I understand. But you can't kill my disciples for nothing. My disciples can't die for nothing. It doesn't matter if you have good intentions or bad intentions. What I believe is that karma is karma, and grudges are grudges. Maybe I owe you, but my disciples don't. I admit that I owe them. But you still have to pay for the grievances my disciples have suffered. There's nothing to say. That's what I believe is fair. Yes, that's what the prime of Tong Tian believes. Today, we're gathered here because of the change in the heavenly Tao." The primeval Lord of Heaven sighed and said, "I believe everyone is clear about the ins and outs of this. As for where we go from here on out, it all depends on our luck. From now on, the heavens of the 9 clans will be the battlefield." The primeval Lord of Heaven sighed slightly. He opened his eyes and looked tired. He looked around at everyone and said slowly, "There's no need to say more. I only hope that everyone can preserve their orthodoxy like the Western sect after this calamity." Everyone nodded silently. Many of them glared fiercely at Kundi, either early or late. It was precisely because Xuandi defied the heavenly enlightenment tribulation and opened the sky in the calamity. He spread karma and scattered karma, causing the calamity to change. The heavenly Tao sensed everyone because of the changes in the calamity. It was no longer the same as before. That was why there was such a warning. How much karma must have been triggered to make the calamity take the initiative to sense it? This point was obvious, and when one thought about it carefully, it was extremely terrifying, shocking and terrifying. Furthermore, Xuanti had given up the holy position as the price and spread the rest of the holy position throughout the entire human world, causing the entire ancestral land to be filled with the karma of the Western sect. At least in this calamity, the Western sect had already taken the initiative. No matter how the calamity evolved, no matter if they died in the end. However, the orthodoxy of the Western sect would definitely be able to survive. This was something that no one could change no matter who it was. What made the demon emperor June and the others the angriest was that because of the God-confirmed tribulation back then, there were all kinds of karma entangling. The human race of Chan school and the Western sect had long formed an inseparable relationship. That also led to Xuanti protecting the orthodoxy of the Western sect and the three sects of Chan school and Ren school. That was also the reason why the primeval Lord of Heaven and the Prime of Heaven did not really erupt, although they were very angry. Xuanti's kindness towards the Chan school and the Ren school was not small. However, to Hudu, Di Jun, Luo Ho, Mingyi, Ling Huang, and the others that was an extremely fucked up matter. Chapter 1381. Demon Emperor June and the others were all aggrieved. You were all prepared. You were sure that your forces would not be destroyed. Didn't that mean that we, who were not prepared, would be used as cannon fodder in this cultivation tribulation? Damn it. Did you ask for our opinion? If we were not careful, we would be represented. However, there was always fairness in the cultivation tribulation. That was the orthodoxy. The orthodoxy was preserved, but it did not mean that this race and this sect were preserved. In other words, everyone understood that as long as there were people in this world who preached Buddhism, then Buddhism existed in this world. As for whether Buddhism existed or not, it was another matter. There was an essential difference between the two. In other words, if Buddhism existed, the orthodoxy would still exist. This principle was very simple. However, even though Xuanti could accept it, others might not be able to accept it. Even if you were destroyed, your orthodoxy would still exist. If we were destroyed, would there be nothing left? There was no such logic in the world. Therefore, when everyone walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, they were all angry. Was this fate? I don't believe in heaven. If heaven wants to destroy me, then I will go against heaven. Xuanti also went against heaven's initiation tribulation, which led to the current situation. If Xuanti can go against heaven, can't we? When Zhou Xiaoduo walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, his heart was filled with confusion. Suddenly, she came. Suddenly, she left. In the middle, she heard some words in confusion and witnessed some things. But it seemed that she did not understand. Why did she come? Why did she leave? What happened in the middle? She was confused and in a trance the whole time. But as soon as everyone walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, they immediately went their separate ways and disappeared without a trace, leaving the two of them behind. Damn, no one cares about us. Zhou Xiaoduo was a little annoyed. At least there should be a good beginning and a good ending, right? It seems that no one cares about us. We have to rely on ourselves for the return journey. Zhou Xiaonian pouted. There was some panic in her eyes. She really felt that she had come into contact with a lot of great people and heard some incredible things. This was simply too horrifying. Xiao Duo, I'm afraid that these things here will have a far-reaching impact. We have to hurry back and tell Dad, Mom, and Godfather. All right. After making up their minds, the two of them quickly left and returned to the human race and the astral souls. After the leaders of the various clans left the Purple Cloud Palace, apart from Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxiaonian, there were 3 waves of attacks. Each of them was riddled with scars. Of course, there was no need to elaborate on this. Everything was as it should be. Their standpoint was already clear. If there was an opportunity to eliminate the enemy, it would be strange if they did not take action. Naturally, it was not strange at all. Zhuoxiaoduo decided to return almost immediately. They left as fast as they could, but they managed to avoid a lot of trouble. As soon as the two of them left, Demon Emperor Di Jun, Dongwang Tai Yi, and Demon Empress Shi He tore through space and rushed back. Where is he? Why are you walking so fast? The 3 of them were a little depressed, and they didn't know where to vent their anger. Demon Empress Shi He was especially disappointed. During this trip to the Purple Cloud Palace, the demon clan was naturally overjoyed to have obtained a sage position. However, the aura of the 3-legged golden crow on Zhuoxiaoduo's body also moved the 3 of them. They had been worried for a long time. However, due to various considerations, it was not a good time to make a big fuss. The 3 of them were not in a hurry. They did not expose this layer of karma on the spot. When this meeting came to an end, they would have plenty of time to figure out the situation. However, the 3 of them did not expect that as soon as they left the Purple Cloud Palace, they were pulled away by the Prime of Tongtian, who said that there was something important to discuss. However, after following them for a while, the Prime of Tongtian said that it was not a big deal and that it would not be too late to discuss it later. Hence, he left on his own. The 3 of them had been fooled. When they came back to look for him, he was already gone. One could imagine how depressed they were. On the other side, Primeval Origin also left with Xuanti and the demon ancestor Luoho. Well, to be more precise, it should be said that the 3 sages had taken the demon ancestor away. Regarding the joint invitation of the 3 of them, even someone as strong as the demon ancestor Luoho could only follow them to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, as they walked, Primeval Origin left on his own and disappeared halfway. Then, Xuanti wanted to come back to take a look. Coincidentally, Luoho also wanted to come back to take a look. He was still thinking about the aura he had sensed on Zhuoxiaoduo. That was the aura of the god-slaying spear. He could not be wrong. However, Xuanti also went back when Xuanti suggested that they should hurry back. Luoho was naturally happy to see this happen. If the 2 sages of the West also went back, there would be more variables if they sensed the aura of the god-slaying spear on Zhuoxiaoduo. However, by the time Luoho came back to look for him, he would be even later than the 3 of them. Naturally, he would not be able to see anything. That kid is a human cub. Now that the war between the clans is a foregone conclusion, we will see him sooner or later. There is no need to rush. Everyone thought so. After all, they were all experienced experts who had cultivated for countless years. Their patience was far better than that of ordinary cultivators. In particular, they clearly realized that this kid seemed to be favored by all parties. Primeval Tongtian favored him a lot, which was publicly acknowledged by everyone present. There was also the junior of the Ling clan who had just attained the holy position. He seemed to be called Wan Minxing and had a deep relationship with him. If they really wanted to touch him, it would be difficult to do so. There would be many consequences. At least if they really used force. As long as they were not completely beaten to death, they might face Primeval Tongtian, Xuanti, or even Her Majesty Empress Wadot. If they faced all 5 of them at the same time, even the demon ancestor Luoho would probably die in an instant. It was rare to be lucky. What? The Flood Witch and Zhuo Chonglu were so shocked that they stood up together. After all, the news that Zhuo Xiaoduo brought back from his trip was too explosive. It was simply earth-shattering. Zhuo Chonglu was more concerned that the situation was so serious that it had gone out of control. At least, it was beyond the scope of what the human clan of the astral souls could deal with. Zhuo Zhonglu, Wu Yuding, and the rest of the Star Soul Realm's upper echelons were not weak, but at the end of the day, they were still considered aboriginals. They were humans who had only reappeared after the destruction of the continent. They did not have much of an impression of the people that Zhuo Xiaoduo had mentioned. However, because the Umno Alliance continent where the Flood Witch was born had been divided, it had not experienced the apocalypse. Therefore, he still had a clear understanding of the inheritance of the old people and even the ancient legends. Whether it was the Shangqing, Yuqing, Taiqing, Zhuanti. These people were all supreme immortals and Buddhas that only existed in legends. It was precisely because he knew about it that he was even more aware of how serious this matter was. To be able to make all of these existences jump out and make careful arrangements, it was not hard to imagine the scale of this cataclysm. All the saints gathered and rearranged their positions to deal with the great calamity. 9 saint positions. In the end, there are only 8. There's still one left. The Flood Witch was very interested. There is indeed one empty seat, Zhuo Xiaoduo said. Oh. Flood touched his chin and couldn't help but be tempted. That was a saint position. He didn't know if he had the chance to sit on it. Elder Wan also got a saint position. The Flood Witch was even more envious. He could ignore everything in the world and didn't care. However, he couldn't ignore the saint position. Based on the Flood Witch's understanding of Elder Wan's cultivation base was naturally extremely high, even higher than his own. Even though he had already reached the level of Ancestor Sorcerer, there was still some difference in his cultivation base. However, in terms of combat strength, she was much better. It was just that they belonged to the same camp, and Elder Wan had never been known for his combat strength. He only knew who was stronger and who was weaker. Therefore, the Flood Witch would not look for Elder Wan to test her skills. However, now, Elder Wan, who was not even in the top 3 in terms of combat strength in the 3 continents like the Astral Souls, actually got a saint position. This result made the Flood Witch feel like she had eaten a lemon. The root of her teeth was a little. Not very strong. However, the Flood Witch just thought about it and put this matter aside. Through Zhuo Xiaoduo's narration, he was very clear that although the position of a saint was good, it wasn't something that anyone could sit on. It wasn't based on one's cultivation base or combat strength. Otherwise, no matter who it was, it wouldn't be Wan Min Xing Wan Lao's turn to take the position. Now that he sat on the saint position, it didn't mean that he was definitely a saint. In comparison, Huda Zhu Wu had also appeared at this gathering and sat on a saint position. This made the Flood Witch more concerned and excited. Our Huda Zhu Wu has appeared in the world again. And he sat on a saint position. As expected, the heavens are protecting our race. Our race has a chance to rise again. The Flood Witch was inexplicably excited. This was the first time in her life that she had heard news about a living Zhu Wu. This news was like a shot of adrenaline to the entire Wu people. Not to mention the fact that the man in white had said that the 8 ancestral sorcerers were still alive but had been sealed by someone. Although the Flood had already begun to investigate this matter, compared to the 8 ancestral magi who had been sealed and the situation was definitely hidden and difficult to investigate, the ancestral magi of Earth who had reappeared were the seniors of the magi who were easier to find and contact. The more the Flood Witch thought about it, the more excited she became. Gradually, she lost her composure. How many years had it been? The Wu people had always been walking in the cracks. No matter what kind of strong enemies they faced, they had to fight by themselves. They didn't have anyone to rely on. They could only swallow their broken teeth and swallow their blood. They could only cultivate harder to become stronger and avoid being bullied by others. The main reason why the Wu people had been fighting against the astral souls, the human race, and even the Tao League was that they didn't want to lose their sense of crisis. The other 11 of the 12 great shamans weren't great shamans from the beginning. Every one of them had fought and been beaten up countless times since they were young. Well, half of them were beaten up by their opponents, and the other half was beaten up by the Flood Witch. The Flood Witch was able to become the #1 great shaman early on for a reason. His existence had never been surpassed. Now, the return of the various races had cast a long shadow over the Wu people's heads. No matter if it was the monster race, the Tao League, or the demon ancestor. Everyone knew that the Wu people were no match for them. But no one in the Wu people thought about retreating. No matter what we face, we only have one thought: to charge forward. If we don't charge forward to fight back, what hope do the Wu people have? On the other hand, if we charge forward and still can't fight back, the Wu people will still be finished. Since we're going to be finished, why don't we fight with all our might? Fight to be the first to die, and let the Wu people be destroyed after we die. The Flood Witch didn't have a worthy opponent like Zhuo Chonglu when he first started fighting against the astral souls. The 7 swords of the Tao League could definitely suppress the Flood Witch, but the other great shamans of the Umno Alliance weren't there for show. Why wouldn't they join forces with their opponents? The reason was simple. The Umno Alliance never planned to destroy the astral souls and the Tao League. It was because they didn't have any helpers, allies, or people to rely on. They used tens of thousands of years of fighting to cultivate their competitors, so that they could become their allies in the future. But not everyone could become their allies. They had to have enough strength, enough weight, and enough value. The Flood Witch waited for a long time, but he only met Zhuo Chonglu. The others, even the leader of the Tao League, Taoist Lei, couldn't catch his eye. Facts also proved that the Flood Witch's waiting and cultivation of competitors had indeed improved the overall strength of the Umno Alliance. It had also allowed him to rise to the top of the Wu people, the realm of Zhu Wu. However, when the Grand Master of Heaven shot his sword into the 9 heavens and announced his return, the Flood Witch was still so envious that his eyes turned blue. Look at his master. Look at his senior. Look at him. Whatever happened, someone would step forward and make decisions. But now, Huda Zhu Wu had also reappeared in the world, although she hadn't come back yet. But there are still shamans in this world. The Flood Witch roared as if she was venting her anger, and all of a sudden, he also firmly believed in another sentence, the sentence that had not been verified yet. Brother Zhuo. The Flood Witch turned around and said, in a few days, the Wu people will take action. This will have a far-reaching impact on the future and is very significant. I hope you can help us when the time comes. Zhuo Chonglu smiled and said, are you talking about going to the Demon Emperor's palace to try to save Zhu Wu? That's right. Aren't you afraid that it's a trap? The man in white must be from the Western sect. It's not surprising that they used us to weaken the strength of the demon race. But they wouldn't set up such a trap for no reason, especially one that doesn't benefit them. Moreover, the person who said that was most likely one of the 2 saints of the Western sect. Saints, their words are law. The Flood Witch said. In that case, let's go. Zhuo Chonglu said, but it's not good to have too many people involved. I mean, we can't have more than 10 people, and we have to be very careful about the choice of people. Dan Kong can skillfully control the power of space. He can go. Raging fire can go. Poison can also go. If Jin Lin can improve his resistance, he can also go. The Wind Emperor has comprehended the speed of wind. He can increase the movement speed of all of us, so he can also go. The Flood Witch said, on our side, the 6 of us will be the main force. At present, Sui Changlu and Wu Yuting had made a breakthrough and reached a level similar to the Flood Witches. They would have to fight later. One wrong move could cause the void-destroying tower to collapse from the inside out. However, as soon as the 3 of them entered, they immediately sensed that the void-destroying tower had changed again. It could even be said that it was completely different from before. It was not the same thing. Now, the void-destroying tower was like a real continent. They did not know the height of the sky and the depth of the earth. The sky was clear, the clouds were leisurely, and the atmosphere was pleasant. The birds were singing and the flowers were fragrant. Spiritual chi was everywhere. And the most important thing was that the feeling of being restrained and unable to exert their full power was gone. According to the judgment of Flood and the other 2, even if an expert who was several times stronger than them, or even at the level of a sage, fought in this space, it would not affect the stability of the whole world. Damn, what was going on? This change, this evolution, this progress, it was too damn amazing. The 3 of them could not help but feel surprised. They were even thinking about bringing them along. Just based on this void-destroying tower, with this tower, at least the chance of escaping unscathed would increase by 30%. At least 30%. In a place where no one could see. In the villa of Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaonian in the void-destroying tower. On the sofa, a picture was lying crookedly on the sofa. It was like a drunk person lying on the sofa, sprawled out on all fours. There was no image to speak of. The Huang sword fluttered and quickly and steadily came to the picture. On the hilt was a cup of spiritual water. Boss, please have some tea. Just turn it upside down. Boss, no matter what, you are still a picture. There must be some places that are not water resistant. You are the one who is not water resistant. Your whole family is not water resistant. The picture scolded wildly, I am formed naturally from the mysterious substance that separated heaven and earth. I am not afraid of water. What do you know? Pour the water. Immediately, right now. You don't even know how to serve people. What's the use of you? Splash. That cup of spirit water was immediately poured onto the diagram. In an instant, abundant spiritual energy slowly seeped into it, and the rest of the pure water fell onto the sofa. Comfortable, really comfortable. Suddenly, the picture cracked open on its own, like a mouth that opened and closed. It feels good when there's no one to care about me. It feels so good. Cough. The Huang sword was speechless. No one cares about you, but what about me? How did I suddenly go from no one to someone? Is there still any justice in this world that I have never seen anyone use a sword like this? You want me to use the tip of my sword to tickle you, and I can't even scratch you. Was this even something a human would do? Oh, I almost forgot that you're not human. I'll use the tip of my sword to cook for you and make delicious food for you. Who would play with their swords like that? Didn't I just say, fuck, how did this thing come in, when you first came in? Wasn't it just one sentence? Do you have to hold a grudge until now? Why are you so narrow-minded, 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 narrow-minded? You don't have anything. Swish swish. Wah wah wah. Huff huff huff. 2 gusts of wind, and then 2 voices rang out. It was Shao and the god-slaying spear. The 2 of them were almost completely destroyed by Grandpa Tuesday. He had been taken into the painting and fiercely trained. Training in all kinds of environments was nothing, but he was constantly on the verge of having his soul destroyed. Wasn't that a bit too much? Xiao and Yan Shirsi had already cursed more than 1,000,000 times in their hearts. They had been in the world of the painting for thousands of years. Thousands of years of life and death were just a hair's breadth away from each other. They could easily end up in the netherworld, forever separated by heaven and man. Xiao felt that he had lived up to the name of the three-legged golden crow by not breaking down. Yan Shirsi felt that he had lived up to the original god-slaying spear by being able to keep his body and soul intact. Bai and Jiao were in the same boat as them. They had not come out yet. Well, there was another gourd inside, one that came with Grandpa Tuesday. The three gourds combined could fight against Grandpa Tuesday. Although Bai and Jiao were still trapped in the world of the painting that Grandpa Tu had created, as long as another person intervened, this experience would come to an end. This situation made Grandpa Tu, who had been very successful recently, furious. He vented all his anger on the Wahuang sword, who was of the same generation as him. He caught the Wahuang sword spirit and beat it up, but it was not enough. Gradually, he beat it 3 times a day. Later, the Wahuang sword's elder was reduced to a servant who served Grandpa Tu, who had a bad temper, to avoid being beaten up. However, he often got beaten up because he did not serve Grandpa Tu well. Now, the Wahuang sword missed Sua Xiao Duo very much. Although Sua Xiao Duo was a despicable person who had reached the invincible realm, he was just a despicable person. This hateful Tai Chi diagram was not just a despicable person. Whoosh! Bai and Jiao came out and jumped onto the diagram. Big brother too, when are you going to introduce third brother to our mama? He still has a stomach full of elixirs to give. There's no hurry. Grandpa Tu liked Bai and Jiao very much. Hurry up and give me a bit more of your life force. This is the right thing to do. Your big brother too is greedy. A few 100 cubic meters will do. You don't look very good, but you're dreaming. A purple gold gourd rushed out with a whoosh. You deceive children every day and steal their snacks. How can you be so shameless? I really despise you. You've lived for so long, but you've degenerated to this extent. What do you know? How can the two of them finish using those things? Can't you see that they're already familiar with each other? What's the point of eating those things? If a child drinks milk when he's 3 years old, will he still drink milk when he's 30 years old? Why don't you say that you're already millions of years old, but you still want to trick children into drinking milk? How can you open your mouth like that? Old bastard. I'm just helping. For a moment, the three gourds and Grandpa Tu were arguing. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from outside. It was easy to tell from the sound that someone was fighting. Oh! Mommy's coming in. Bai and Jiao rushed out in joy. At the side, Xiao instantly transformed from a teenager into a three-legged golden crow. He was still at a loss, and his 2 round eyes were full of embarrassment. He stood back and forth on his 3 legs, vividly displaying his uneasiness. She seemed to be a little embarrassed. Grandpa Tu and the Wahuang sword were very interested when they saw this. 7th young master, have you recovered your memories? The Wahuang sword whistled gloatingly. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Ah. Grandpa Tu said sarcastically, the 7th prince of the Demon Emperor is going to forget his new mother's saving grace, raising grace, nurturing grace, and nurturing grace. The moment he spoke, he was an old yin-yang. As expected of a noble descendant, as expected of the Demon Emperor's bloodline, as expected of the 3-legged golden crow. TSK TSK TSK. You don't even need to practice to turn your back on others. You're self-taught, and you can use it freely. You're at the peak of perfection, and you can do whatever you want. I really hate that I couldn't be born in a royal family, so that I could have such mental fortitude. Chapter 1382. Bullshit. Xiao growled. Who said? Who said I was ungrateful? How could I? How could I betray? Betray. Betray. He had regained his memory. Although he was still the same, he could no longer call her Mama. If Sua Xiaoduo was a girl, it would be fine. But he was the 7th prince of the Demon Emperor. How could he call a boy Mama for so many years? This kind of shame could not be described with the word bursting. It was so shameful that he could not show his face. It was indescribable. Oh my God, why don't you just let me die? How could I still have the face to see others? Boom boom boom. Sua Xiaonian showed her amazing strength. She was evenly matched with Wu Yuding. She was not at a disadvantage at all. He had met his match, and the general had met his match. Sua Zhonglu and the Flood Great Witch were watching from the side, and they were exulting in joy. Wu Yuding was so angry that she was about to die. He had come in to teach his daughter and son a lesson. Originally, he had wanted to beat up the two of them, who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, until they didn't know where they were. She wanted them to know that not only was their master forever, but their mother would also be their mother forever. She wanted to dispel the unrealistic and naive idea of these two little things going on such a dangerous mission. But when she came in and started fighting, she found that her daughter was tied with her even before her son made a move. Sui Chonglu, that damn guy, was still laughing over there. Why are you laughing? Wu Yuding was ruthless and brought out her true abilities. Her sword qi caused the wind and clouds to surge. Sui Xiaonian was under pressure and could only summon Xiao Xiao Duo to assist in the battle. Once again, the battle with Wu Yuding was spectacular. The more they fought, the fiercer they became. They fought for more than 2,000 moves. Sui Xiaonian was finally defeated. Then, she panted and said innocently, "Mom, can I go with you?" Wu Yuding was speechless for a long time. She didn't feel like a victor at all. She only felt like an old hen that had been defeated. And he was defeated by the little hen. In total, they had exchanged more than 2,300 moves. How long had it been? How did this girl improve so quickly? Not to mention the left and right heavenly kings, his strength might even surpass that old man, the star-plucking monarch. Now, it seems a bit unreasonable to say that you're too weak to go. How infuriating. Sua Xiaoduo, who was watching from the side, was secretly delighted and inexplicably proud. Dad, Mom, what do you think of the way I've raised my wife? As the person who knew Sua Xiaonian the best, Sua Xiaoduo knew very well that Sua Xiaonian hadn't shown her full strength yet. She hadn't even used her ice flame yet. Not to mention that the prime of Tong Tian had given him some defensive treasures that he hadn't used yet. That even if Wu Yuding didn't have the ability to fight with her full strength, after the two of them cancelled each other out, they were probably evenly matched. In other words, Sua Xiaonian now had the strength of Wu Yuding. The Flood Witch couldn't stop praising, little Nianer's progress is really amazing. This strength is enough to show disdain for the heroes. Wu Yuding said angrily, Xiao Duo, go and teach your godfather a lesson. Okay. Sua Xiao Duo answered and went out valiantly. He waved his hammers and said, Godfather, don't just praise my wife. Let me tell you, I'm very powerful now. The Great Witch of the Flood glanced at Sua Mo with disdain, and curled his lips. Then, he calmly took out his 1,000 Souls Nightmare Hammer, and said with a fake smile, then, let me see the ability of young Master Zhua. Young Master Zhua, since you're so powerful, don't beg for mercy later. Wahahaha, of course. I'm invincible. Wu Yuding retreated. 90%. Using 90% of his battle strength, he instantly pushed Sua Xiaoduo back. Sua Xiaoduo was not convinced. He summoned Bianzhou, who rushed out and entered the hammer's head. Suddenly, white light and black gas surrounded the hammer. Rumble. With the help of the artifact spirit, he immediately suppressed the Flood Great Witch again. Flood roared and 3 doppelgangers appeared. Each of them was holding 2 hammers. They surrounded Sua Xiaoduo and started to beat him up. Sua Xiaoduo roared. Unwilling to be outdone, he used 120% of his strength and resisted stubbornly. It was rare to have a fight with his godfather, and it was so satisfying. Moreover, it was related to whether he should participate in the battle or not. Sua Xiaoduo naturally used all his strength. Yes, there were other boosts. All of them were used together. Full power, full power. However, the Flood Witch, who felt that she had used 100% of her strength, suddenly felt a lot of pressure. How did this kid's foundation suddenly increase so much? How long has it been? No, if this goes on, I will be suppressed again. No, absolutely not. Thinking of this, the Great Witch of the Flood couldn't help but unleash his cultivation to the limit and counterattack with 120% of his cultivation. At this moment, the 2 of them had turned into 2 indomitable giants. 4 giant hammers, which were almost half the size of a city, smashed against each other. The Wawang sword stood on the top of the mountain and watched the battle. The Taiji diagram leisurely moved the sofa out and opened the entire diagram. He slumped on the sofa and watched the battle while recording. Yes, ordinary battles naturally wouldn't enter Grandpa Diagram's eyes. However, Flood and Sua Xiaoduo's actual strength and power had reached the sage-to-be level. Moreover, it was rare for hammers to fight against hammers. Therefore, it was qualified to be recorded by the Taiji diagram. Xiao was still in the form of the 3-legged golden crow. He stared at the sky and thought, Mama's strength is so terrifying. Having such a mama doesn't seem to be a shameful thing. Yes, in the ancient times, strength was the most important thing. The one who reached the sage-to-be level was the reason. You can't just recognize mama as your mama. That's your chance, that's your fate, that's your chance. Suddenly, he felt proud. Yan Shihua turned into a stream of black gas and flew around to watch the battle. At the same time, he was waiting for an opportunity to absorb the remaining momentum and power of the battle. Xiaolong sneakily popped out an illusory dragon head from the top of the mountain. He looked at the sky and inexplicably missed the days when fate points poured down like a rainstorm. After a very long time, the 2 of them had already exchanged 6,000 moves, no more and no less. After another head-on clash, Sua Xiaoduo's bones seemed to have turned soft as he fell from the sky. I'm done, I'm done. I'm done. I can't, I really can't. The Flood Witch stopped her hammer on Sua Xiaoduo's forehead. Young Master Sua, if you're a man, you can't say that you can't. How can your endurance be so weak at such a young age? Come on, let's continue for another 300 rounds. Father, please spare my life. Humph. His butt was kicked hard, and he fell quickly into Sua Xiaoyan's arms, who had been waiting for him with open arms. He took the opportunity to bite her. Ouch! Do you want to die? Sua Xiaoyan threw him to the ground grumpily. Father fucked me so hard. My butt is rotten. Please comfort me. Kiss me, hug me, raise me high. Sua Changlu ignored his son who had fallen to the ground. He just smiled and looked at the Flood Witch. Brother Hong, how was it? Very good. The Flood Witch looked refreshed. It was much better than fighting you. My son is stronger than you, his father. It's just a matter of time. Sua Changlu was speechless. Fuck, was the flood possessed by Yuding? Why was the double standard tone so catchy? I'm not exaggerating. What he lacks now is experience and more accumulation. Basically, his battle prowess is only below the two of us. Only you and me. The implication was that his son was already stronger than his wife. Wu Yuding felt uncomfortable listening to him and rolled her eyes one after another. This big guy was too bad with words. Would it kill him to say, his combat power is only below you and me? I don't believe that when I teach Xiao Duo a lesson, he won't dare to resist. How dare he? Humph, only you and me. Only you and me. I'll remember this. I'll get even with you sooner or later. The Flood Witch was really overwhelmed by the big surprise at this time. She was so surprised that she didn't care about Wu Yuding's feelings. Besides, she was a straightforward person. Even if she had concerns, she would still say so. You are not as good as our son. Can't you tell the truth? Therefore, what Wu Yuding once said about the Flood Witch was indeed very reasonable. There is a reason why you are single all your life. Flood was in a good mood. The younger generation had finally grown up. The heavens have eyes. The heavens bless the Wu people. Yes, Sui Xiaoduo is my son. Of course, he is a part of the Wu people. Yes. The Flood Witch said with certainty. Xiaoduo and Nianer are not only strong, but also have the more advanced Annihilation Tower. They are more useful than Raging Fire Wind Emperor and the others. Sui Changlu smiled. Then it settled. Our family will move together. Everyone will participate in this mission. The three nodded at the same time. Wu Yuding's face flashed with a touch of worry. Her child had grown up and was able to share the limelight with her. She was able to stand on her own. She was happy, proud, and happy. She wanted to announce to the world that her son and daughter were so powerful now. They had no one in their eyes. Master Tu could not help it. Stop. His voice was crisp and delicate. The Hua Wang's sword was stunned. Crisp. Delicate. Master Tu, you are so big and burly. Sui Xiaoduo was stunned. You can talk. A puff of smoke rose from the picture, and a 7 or 8-year-old little girl with delicate makeup stood obediently in front of Sui Xiaoduo. Don't cut me with your sword. It'll hurt. Whoa. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked indescribably pitiful. Wretch. The Hua Wang sword, who was waiting on the mountain peak outside to watch the show, directly vomited. Master Tu. Can't you have a little bit of integrity? You can even transform into a little boy, not to mention the masculine image with a full beard that you usually portray. But now you are transforming into a little girl. Where is your integrity? Where is your shame? You are still crying. Watch me punch you one by one. Little did they know that the Tai Chi diagram was the most mysterious object in the world. It did not have a gender. If it wanted to be a boy, it would be a boy. If it wanted to be a girl, it would be a girl. Compared to other people, he really saw through Sui Xiaoduo. It was easy to communicate with him with such an obedient, cute, clean, and pitiful little girl. And his purpose was only this. You are this painting. Sui Xiaoduo's eyes almost popped out. Yes. Master Tu nodded pitifully. You are a little girl. Yes. Wretch. Wretch. There were several sounds of vomiting outside. He did not know what it was that he had eaten too much. Sui Xiaoduo was skeptical. Then when you were on the road. I was ordered to do so. The little loli's tender voice said, it was my original master's order to use this method to give you benefits. I was only following orders. It wasn't my original intention. Yes. It is indeed a benefit. Xiao Duo rubbed his chin as he couldn't figure it out. He vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he could not tell what was wrong. The benefits are just this little. Xiao Duo was a little dissatisfied. You trapped me for so long with great fanfare, and you only gave me this little compensation. There is also a gourd of pills. But Master said that you can't take it until you are a half-saint. Otherwise, there will be side effects. Combat power is not the same as cultivation. If you don't have enough cultivation, there are hundreds of disadvantages to using external items to increase your cultivation too early. The little girl said timidly. She was really as obedient as she could be. Oh. Even though Xiao's combat strength was almost on par with the Flood Shaman, his cultivation was at the bottom. At the very most, he was only at the peak of the Golden Immortal realm. He was truly unable to attain the Half-Saint realm. The Flood Witch's peak combat power was one thing, but really going all out was another. It was impossible for her to go all out with her son. What pills are so powerful? Xiao Duo was a little itchy. How many pills are there in total? There are a total of 10 furnaces. How many pills are there in 10 furnaces? 9 pills in one furnace. So many. I'm afraid the quality is limited. My master is the best in alchemy in the world. The quality of his pills are the best. Xiao Duo felt that this little girl was too honest. She answered whatever he asked. How could she be so obedient? So cute. Looking at her, one punch would make her cry for 3 days, right? Then, he calculated in his heart. 10 furnaces. 9 pills in one furnace. How many was that? 90 pills. And the quality of the pills was the best. He was so rich that he could rival a country, right? After calculating for a moment, he said, "Can you give me 3 pills first so that I can appreciate these so-called top-grade pills?" They are with the gourd. Master too was aggrieved and timid. The gourd doesn't listen to me. By the way, my master's pills can't be described as the best. They should be heaven grade or divine grade. Og. A purple gourd suddenly appeared on the sofa. Then, the purple gourd immediately turned into a cute boy. However, the boy was vomiting. Retching that his face was full of disgust. He was probably disgusted by Master Tuesday. He was so disgusted that he could not help but vomit. That I have never been so disgusted in my life. Chapter 1383. No matter how much they vomited, felt disgusted, disdained, or ridiculed, everyone could not help but admire Master Tu's accurate grasp of the human heart. He had never been at a disadvantage. Now that he was up against Xiao Duo, Grandpa Tu had thoroughly researched how to not be at a disadvantage. He had no intentions of scheming against Xiao Duo. The little girl looked pitiful, timid, beautiful, cute, and had a pair of big clear eyes. It was as if her eyes would be filled with tears if she stared. Who could bear to reprimand her? They could not even bear to put on a stern face. She was the kind of girl who would cry in fright and not be appeased for a long time. Xiao Duo, who had been thoroughly tricked, obviously could not use force against the little girl. He could not even use his usual cheap tricks. Yes, his invincible skills were instantly restricted. Thus, he scratched his head and turned to ask the purple gold gourd, "Where are the pills?" The little boy held his head high. "Yes, all of them are with me." "Then give me 3 pills first. Is that okay? Are 3 enough?" The little boy asked cutely. Xiao Duo was overjoyed. "Can we discuss this?" Why don't you give me more? Here, I'll give you one portion first. 9 pills. The little boy opened his mouth and spat out a sparkling purple jade bottle. It was filled with 9 pills that were filled with colorful lights. He reminded, I can give them to you. However, before you reach the zenith heavenly realm, try not to consume these pills if you can. It will hinder your future cultivation. Xiao Duo was stunned and said, isn't it a half-sage? A half-sage would use it to break through to the boundary sage realm. A zenith heavenly realm cultivator would use it to increase their cultivation at the fastest speed. However, after consuming it, they would need a considerable amount of time to adapt to the rapid growth of their power. In terms of the best effect, the early stage zenith heavenly realm cultivator would have the fastest growth after consuming it. However, there would be a considerable risk. What risk? Xiao Duo asked. The purple gold gourd pondered for a while. The little boy opened his mouth and stretched out his arms, boom. Then, he made a gesture of exploding fireworks. His eyes were sparkling and full of joy. However, Xiao Duo did not feel happy at all. Instead, he was speechless. She scolded Bai and Zhou, can't you teach them something better? Xiao Duo was sure that the purple gold gourd was a connate life form. Did it know what boom meant? So, Bai and Zhou must have taught him to do that. Bai turned into a little girl while Zhou turned into a little boy. Both of them had their heads drooped as their toes rubbed against the ground. Xiao Duo then turned to the purple gold gourd. He rubbed his hands and revealed a wolfish smile. Hey, you. What's your name again? Little Gold. Xiao Jin looked at him vigilantly, as if he was about to retreat at the slightest provocation and leave immediately. Xiao Duo rubbed his hands. Since grand heavenly immortals can consume it, then. This portion is a little too little. It's not enough. Then how much do you want? You see. 3 portions. Xiao Duo looked into Xiao Jin's eyes. He had only asked for 3 portions, but this little guy didn't even bat an eyelid. He changed his mind at the last minute. I want 5 portions. No problem. Xiao Jin was unusually forthright and generous. He didn't hesitate at all. Anyway, I'm saving it for you. You can have as much as you want. What's the harm in giving it all to you? I'm not giving it to you voluntarily because Master has instructed me to tell you the pros and cons of consuming it at each stage. You can ask for it yourself. I've already told you the pros and cons. What happens after that is none of my business. He didn't expect Xiao Jin to agree so readily. Xiao Duo was stunned. He suddenly regretted that it was too little. It was definitely too little. He couldn't change his mind now. He didn't know when he could ask for it again. Looking at the row of purple jade bottles in front of him, Xiao Duo, who still didn't understand the situation, fell into deep regret. He regretted that he didn't ask for more bottles just now. But now, he could ask for 5 bottles. There were 45 pills in total. It was enough for him. At least for the human race, it was enough for Zhuo Changlu and the others. Even if Li Changlong and the others were included, it would still be enough. He just didn't know what level of cultivation these guys were at now. Xiao Duo distributed a few pills on the spot. 1 for Bai, 1 for Zhou, 1 for Yan Shishir, 1 for the 3-legged golden crow, 1 for himself, and 1 for Zhuo Xiaoyan. The others didn't feel anything when they received the pills. After all, this was a basic operation and a basic ration. It was normal. However, Xiao couldn't help but feel uneasy. Holding the 9 transformation golden pill in hand, he hesitated in front of Xiao Duo for a long time. He was still hesitant and didn't move forward. Xiao Duo frowned and looked at Xiao with some scrutiny. Xiao seemed to have difficulty opening his mouth. I've recovered. Oh. Xiaoduo's face suddenly showed a playful expression. Recovered. His Majesty the Demon King's 7th Prince. Prince Yachong. All your memories have come back. Zhao's eyes flashed with an extremely complicated expression. Actually, I would rather not have recovered. Xiao sighed. Suddenly, he turned into an 18 or 19-year-old boy with red lips and white teeth. He was handsome and confident. In terms of appearance, he was only slightly inferior to Xiao Duo himself. He said with a bitter smile, I'm afraid you won't be happy if I talk to you in the form of the Golden Crow. Xiaonian was a little worried. Xiao, we've been together for a long time. It's fate. Don't worry too much. Now that you can recover and pick up the past, we're all happy for you. Xiao nodded hard. Thank you. Thank you. Xiao Duo frowned and said slowly, Xiao, since you've recovered, it's not appropriate for you to stay in the Tower of Annihilation any longer. In a few days, when we go to the Demon Palace, we'll take you with us. Xiao suddenly raised his head and said anxiously, Mama, you don't want me anymore. As soon as he said Mama, he came back to his senses and suddenly blushed. But he didn't care about his shyness. He just looked at Xiao Duo anxiously and nervously. Xiao Duo took a breath and said, Since you've recovered and picked up the past, it's only right that you return to your biological parents. Now that the ancestral land has been restored and the heavenly tribulation has begun, the confrontation between the clans is a foregone conclusion. Everyone's positions are different. Your father and mother are there, your brothers and sisters, and your former subordinates are there. There, you have supreme power and boundless prestige. You can do whatever you want. What's the point of staying with me? What's the point? In life, fate begins and ends. Perhaps the fate between us should come to an end as you pick up the past. Xiao said painfully, It's not that I don't want to go back. But I don't want to go back. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Suddenly, he said loudly, That's my home. Isn't this place my home too? Of course I don't want to leave my father and mother, but I don't want to leave you guys either. What are you shouting for? Xiao Duo put on the airs of an bold father and scolded, No one said that this is not your home. Young man, can you not be so sensitive? Just tell me what's on your mind. I'm looking forward to going back and seeing my father and mother again, but I don't want to go back. I don't want to lose you. Xiao said slowly, just as you said, I have everything in that home. My father is very good, Uncle Dong Huang is very good, and my mother is even better. But I'm very tired in that home, really tired. I don't dare to say anything, no matter how sad I am, no matter what's on my mind. I don't even dare to say anything when I'm injured. After all, my father has 10 princes. I'm not the only one. The other royal brothers all have countless ideas, Yi Zichen said. And all of them are very outstanding. The 10 sons of the Golden Crow are all talents. I don't want to leave my father and mother, but if I have a choice, I don't want to live such a tiring life anymore. I don't want to fight with them to the death. That position is not as beautiful as I thought. But everyone has no choice in their birth. I'm a prince. Even if I don't fight, even if I'm a fool. As long as I'm alive, there's hope and there's a threat. Xiao said painfully, the last time I was plotted against and died, it was actually. It was. Speaking up to this point, he suddenly stopped talking. He smiled bitterly and continued, Here, I don't care about the past. I'm just a 3-legged golden crow, but I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to think about anything. I live happily, simply, freely and freely. Even though my memory hasn't recovered and I've done a lot of stupid things. This. Although he said these words very frankly, Zhao's handsome face was still full of blush, and he couldn't help but feel ashamed. There was no other reason. It was really too shameful. He remembered that when he was still a three-legged golden crow, he was often burned naked. He fought with people, pecked people's crotches, set fire to people's crotches, burned people's crotches, and burned people's butts. Once, when Zhuoxiaoduo was taking a bath, a little crow flew over and lay on Zhuoxiaoduo's body, curiously shouting, "Mama, there's a big worm under you." Then it stretched out its little sharp beak and pecked curiously. On the spot, Zhuoxiaoduo jumped 10 feet high, screaming and chasing after him. Whenever he thought of these things, Xiao even had the thought of what was the point of living. He should have died many times in a large society that he was really too ashamed to show his face. What's more, it seemed that many times he died in a society were recorded. Every time he thought of this, he felt more and more hopeless. Now, even Bai, Jiu, Wawang's sword and others had learned how to play with mobile phones. Thinking of this, Xiao looked at the Wawang sword sadly. "Sword Elder, oh Sword Elder. Why didn't you protect me? If you really don't want to go back, then don't go back." Zhuoxiaoduo patted him on the shoulder and said, "Why are you so emotional? If you continue to be emotional, I can't delete those videos for you." Zhuoxiaonian was curious and interrupted, "What big worm?" Chapter 1384. Zhao's fair face turned red and begged, "Please delete them all. I beg you." "What's the point of deleting them?" Zhuoxiaoduo rolled his eyes and said, "Those videos are in each of their phones. Including your grandparents and dad. Everyone has a copy. Can you delete them all?" Xiao wailed and squatted on the ground, covering his face. He was too ashamed to face anyone. "Oh my God, let me die. Forget it. It seems like I can only stay in the tower for the rest of my life," Xiao said in despair. The seventh prince of the Demon King. Pecked little Gg. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. Unfortunately, you can't escape even if you stay here forever. Zhuoxiaonian reminded him worriedly, "Your grandparents are not outsiders. They can come in at any time. When that time comes." Xiao, who had been hit hard, immediately shut herself up. He looked around blankly, covering his face and curling into a ball. His face was full of despair. Master Tu, who still looked like a little girl, and Xiao Jin, the purple golden gourd, walked over and asked curiously, "What video? Is it fun? Let us watch it too." "Don't watch it." Xiao let out a thunderous roar. She jumped up and transformed into a three-legged golden crow. Her fur stood on end. He shouted crazily in the air, "No one is allowed to watch it. No one is allowed to watch it." Ah! Bai and Jiu were sneakily taking out their phones when Xiao swooped down and started to fight. Ah! Don't watch it. Zhuoxiaoduo sighed, "This is so pitiful. Let's get out of here." After they left the tower, Zhuoxiaonian asked worriedly, "Is Xiao alright?" "He's definitely fine." Zhuoxiaoduo said confidently, "He's just embarrassed for a while. What can happen? Otherwise, they won't have any fun in their long lives. I'm doing this for their own good." Zhuoxiaonian rolled her eyes. "Does that mean that Xiao has to thank you for your kindness? Is that what I'm talking about?" "I'm talking about the demon race. Do you think the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress are such easygoing people?" Zhuoxiaoduo's face darkened and he sighed. It was common knowledge. Sooner or later, there would be a war between humans and demons. Now that the heavenly tribulation had begun, they were fighting for the right to survive. When the time came, it was easy to imagine how tragic the battle would be. As for Zhao's identity and position, try to think of a way to get the best of both worlds. Try your best. Sui Xiaoduo did not want to talk about this matter because he was full of melancholy. How could he not know that there would be a dilemma in the future? However, he did not know what to do when the time came. There's always a way out. Let's take it one step at a time. If only there wasn't a war. Xiao has a home on both sides. Perhaps she would be the happiest among the demon race's 10 great princes. Sui Xiaoyan sighed. Why don't we discuss this with Mom and Dad? Sui Xiaoduo said. Sui Xiaoyan nodded. This was indeed an effective solution at the moment. At the same time, it was also a solution that was not a solution. The two of them left the Tower of Annihilation and found Sui Chonglu and his wife. They told their parents about Zhao's memory recovery. When Sui Chonglu and Wu Yuting heard this, they were also dumbfounded. What can I do if you ask me about this? What can I do? In such a difficult situation, we can't just do whatever we want. Instead of asking the two of us, why don't you ask the Demon Emperor Jun and Dong Huangtai directly? Wu Yuting rolled her eyes and said, how can the two of us make decisions for the demon race? That's true. I've helped them raise their son for so long. It's reasonable for them to give me something good to repay me. Sui Xiaoduo thought about it and looked fascinated. Repay you? You're dreaming. Wu Yuting chuckled. If they don't beat you up a few hundred times, I'll think that you're the luckiest person in the world. Sui Xiaoduo was melancholy. Life is full of helplessness. There are so many ungrateful people. Sui Chonglu and Wu Yuting were speechless. You can't blame them that you're just a junior, a child of the human race. Expecting the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress to address you as brother is an extravagant hope, an unrealistic extravagant hope. As for expecting the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress to call us uncle and aunt, that's even more of a fantasy. The things that this kid does are always so. Wu Yuting looked up at the sky with a melancholy expression. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. How did I give birth to such a son? Sigh. Sui Chonglu naturally didn't doubt the elixirs that Sui Xiaoduo took out. However, after taking one, he couldn't help but be shocked. What elixir is this? Sui Zhonglu felt as if his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds like a rocket. Sui Chonglu wasn't surprised that the elixir given by his son had an extraordinary effect. However, it would be strange if he wasn't shocked that it could increase his cultivation by so much in such a short time. It must be known that Sui Zhonglu's current cultivation level was almost at the limit of a human's ability. Every bit of progress after that would require an opportunity. It would require a long time of grinding. At least in his knowledge, it was very difficult to imagine what kind of medicinal pill could allow one to advance so much in one's cultivation after eating one. I don't know. Anyway, since there are no side effects, I'll take it. It's a waste not to take it. Sui Xiaoduo was very open-minded and didn't hide his ignorance at all. After he and Sui Xiaoyan ate the elixir, they fought hundreds of rounds in the space of the Tower of Annihilation. Both sides were exhausted hundreds of times. Yes, the fierce battle here was a real battle, the kind with real swords and spears. Those who had the wrong idea should face the wall and reflect on their mistakes. He was already used to the increase of the elixir's efficacy. Of course, there were times when Sui Xiaoduo would use other methods to exhaust himself after finishing his cultivation. This kind of battle wasn't the kind with real swords and spears. Those who had the wrong idea should also face the wall and reflect on their mistakes. Sui Xiaoduo kept the elixirs for Li Chenglong and the others in advance. Sui Xiaoduo really didn't keep any of the remaining elixirs. He gave all of them to Sui Chonglu and let the old man distribute them himself. He didn't have to worry about it. With the old man here, everything can be done. As his son, you don't have to worry too much. Sui Xiaoduo was half lying on the sofa, hugging his wife and crossing his legs. He looked relaxed and happy. Sui Xiaoyan felt the same. Yes, if there's anything, let Dad and Mom do it. We don't have to worry about anything. Our days are really too comfortable. It had to be said that Sui Xiaoduo's influence on Sui Xiaoyan was getting worse day by day. She was becoming more and more like a salted fish. With the resources in Sui Xiaoduo's hands, even if he used them to form a team and dominate the whole world, there was still a lot of surplus. He could easily cultivate a group of high-level men of sacrifice who were completely loyal to him. It was not difficult at all. But for Sui Xiaoduo, who was the kind of lazy guy who would never stand if he could sit or lie down if he could. He would never work hard if he could win by lying down. How could he have the slightest interest in that kind of thing? Sui Chonglu and Wu Yuding were deeply helpless. But so what? They had to take the elixirs given by their son and start to shake people up. With the Zhuo couple's wealth and influence, naturally, everyone was happy. They got a lot of IOUs. The specific process couldn't be described in detail, but it was generally, my son found a job for me. This kid is embarrassed. When people have children, it's like having a debt collector. I have to work for them every day. Sigh, isn't that right? Minister, just tell us what you want and we'll do it. It's not a bad thing. Strictly speaking, it's actually a good thing. What good thing? Let's hear it. The little brat got some elixirs. It's quite good. As long as one's cultivation is above the great heavenly level, one can immediately advance by one level after taking it. This kid is so shy that he's embarrassed to distribute such a good thing. He asked me, his father, to do it. He pushed such a small matter to me. Tell me, what can I count on him in the future? Boss, you're still sad about such a good thing. Can't you be more like Versailles? Boss, I despise you. Hurry up and take out the good stuff. Elixirs above the great heavenly level. My God, what kind of treasure is this? It's a dream item. Tisk tsk. Boss, you're so capable. You can train your son to be so awesome. It's really enviable. That's right. If I had such a son, I'd wake up laughing in my dreams. You still have the nerve to complain. What else do you want him to do? I'm already so old, and I'm running out to do favors for my son. Am I not pitiful? That brat just threw those things to me, and then he didn't care about anything else and ran out to play. I'm just a bag of old bones running here and there to do things for him. What I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. I really don't expect anything from that brat. Zhuo Chonglu stroked his beard and looked at everyone with a smile. Tell me, am I pitiful? Tisk. Everyone collectively despised him. Boss, can you be any more despicable? He's just here to show off his son to us. But he's too good at showing off. We can't compare. That's right. If I had such a son, I'd show off every day too. I'd show off from day to night. The bunch of old men were happy. If there were benefits to be reaped, they wouldn't care about him showing off his son. From the beginning to the end, the left and right heavenly kings didn't say a word. The main thing was that they didn't dare to say anything. Everyone was calling him boss. If the two of them dared to say anything, they'd be beaten to a pulp. They couldn't do anything about it. The two of them had a motherly smile on their faces the entire time. Their flattery was endless. Junior brother is so awesome. Xiao duo is so awesome. That's great. That's great. Uncle Zhua is so lucky. Master is so lucky. You bunch of trash. You're so much worse than my master. You bunch of trash. How can you compare to my Uncle Zhua? You'll be so greedy. You won't have such a son even if you're greedy. Nan Jingqian, Dongfang Jingyang, and the rest almost rebelled. They really wanted to beat Yu Dongtian and Yun Zhonghu up. These two bastards. It's fine if you flatter your uncle and master. But why do you have to step on us when you're flattering us? What a terrible temper. Originally, it was fine if it was just Yu Dongtian. We could just bear with it. But now, when did Yun Zhonghu become like this? Even the two sides who were in the middle of the battle were scared witless when they saw the arrival of these four experts. They took a deep breath, and waited for the four experts to pass by. Then, they let out a sigh of relief, and calmed down. The lineup of two sage-to-be and two half-saints was not something that an ordinary team could handle. Considering the strength of the Zhuo family, in the entire ancestral land, except for the Demon King's family, no other family could be mentioned in the same breath as the Zhuo family. Even if they were not the most powerful family in the world, they were definitely the second most powerful family in the world. The Flood Witch was waiting on Mount Wuxin. When she saw the family of four, she could not help but smile and sigh in relief. Brother Zhua, thank you. Godfather. Godfather. Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaonian saluted and greeted them. Ah. It's only been a few days, but you two have improved so much. The Flood Witch looked at them carefully and was as shocked as Zhua Chonglu. Humph. Zhua Chonglu rolled his eyes and said, I took in a godson for you. After that, you were displeased. How are you now? Wu Yuting said, even a great wizard can't escape the law of true fragrance, right? Flood said, did I ever object? How come I don't remember? You two don't talk nonsense. Old thing, shameless. While they were talking, Lai Hua, Dan Kong, and the others also came. For a moment, they were full of laughter and joy. They stayed in the Omno Alliance until the afternoon. Flood, Dan Kong, Lai Hua, Jean Lin, Feng Di, Du Wu, and the Zhuo family, a total of 10 people. After a greeting, they rushed into the sky. Zhua Xiaoduo said that it would be perfect if they could gather 10 people. But they didn't know if this trip would be perfect. Everyone turned into wind and clouds and rushed toward the Monster Clan's continent. They were all as fast as lightning, and all traces of them were hidden. What they saw along the way made the 10 people sigh. If the Dao League was the focus of the various races' expeditions and was full of devastation, then most of the damage was from before the ancestral land was restored. Because of the fall of the ancestral land, it was ruthlessly ravaged by the Demon Clan. Even though the Demon Clan had retreated, the traces of devastation left behind were difficult to repair. Moreover, it was one of the main battlefields of the various races. One could imagine the heavy damage. Apart from the Dao League continent, the Monster Clan's continent could be said to be the most damaged of all the continents that returned. After all, the Monster Clan was the strongest in the 9 continents. The Monster Clan's comprehensive strength was the strongest among all the races. If there was a choice, the races would first target the Monster Clan. As far as everyone's eyes could see, countless mountains and precipitous ridges had collapsed. There were tattered demon corpses everywhere that had not been cleaned up in time. It was a tragic sight. The demon clan was attacking the monster clan, and there was a loud battle. The Azura clan was also attacking the monster clan, and there was a rain of blood everywhere. The Western sect was also wandering around. When they saw demons with injuries and incomplete combat power but good talent, they would lend a helping hand and take them away. Buddha said that all living beings were equal, so how could there be differences? Demons could also become Buddhas. When they met the right ones, of course, they would take them away. This was just a matter of course. Countless people of the monster clan were inexplicably sorrowful. Their cries after losing their loved ones were no different from that of humans. The people suffer when they prosper, and the people suffer when they die. The joys and sorrows of the world are always the same. Zhuo Zhanglu sighed inwardly, his words expressing his feelings. The current monster clan's continent might be the future monster clan's continent of astral souls. Even the strongest monster clan had been beaten to such a state, let alone the weaker humans of astral souls. At the top of a mountain, a wounded wolf king howled at the sky, his body covered in blood. The wolf king was over 100 feet long. This dense forest was originally its territory. In the past, with a long howl, more than tens of millions of wolves would gather. But now, at this moment, there were only a few scattered wolf howls to support their king. After more than 10 minutes, less than 500 wolves had gathered. Most of them were injured and had incomplete combat power. Outside the mountain, there were many demon experts who were constantly pushing their way in. The Wolf King howled sadly at the sky, but he knew that he could not change the fate of the impending destruction. Zhuo Xiaoduo and the others swept past. Behind them was the towering mountain peak, and the Wolf King, who was covered in blood and howling alone. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian did not feel anything, and neither did Lai Huadan Kong and the others. The destruction of a small settlement of the monster clan was not enough to reach the apex. It was only right that they did not care. However, Zhuo Chonglu and the Flood Witch's eyes flashed with sadness at the same time. Today, the monster clan might not be the Ming dynasty of the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls. Who knew if the Umno Alliance or the Astral Souls would be better than the Wolf King in the end? If that day really came, would the one howling at the sky at the top of the mountain be me? No, it definitely would not be me. I should have died in battle long ago. Suddenly, there were 3 balls of flames in front of them. They rose into the sky, illuminating the sky and illuminating the world. It was 3 of the 10 crown princes. They arrived with great momentum, leading an army to reinforce this side. Zhuo Chonglu and Flood saw that the other party was coming menacingly. They were afraid that their whereabouts would be exposed, so they quickly led the crowd to a higher layer of clouds and avoided the path. The wolf pack was at the end of the road. For a little compassion, it was better not to block the reinforcements of the monster clan, and give them a chance to live. At the right time, the wind and clouds were left behind. The crowd hurried on, and the monster peacock city was in front of them. The atmosphere here was very different from what they had seen before. The intertwining great monster consciousness was extremely dense. However, none of this caught the attention of these 10 people. They passed through them silently and arrived in the sky above the inner city in an instant. However, when they arrived near the inner city, the 10 people did not dare to be too rash. They chose to stop at a height of about 15,000 meters above the ground. This was a very safe height. If they descended a few thousand meters, they would be easily detected by the supermasters like the monster peacock emperor. How's the original plan? Zhuo Chonglu asked. It should be fine. The original plan. They would use the raging fire and the poison venom as the first wave to create chaos. Dan Kong, Wind Emperor, and Jean Lin would cooperate to further alert the enemy. They would maximize the attention of the high-level masters of the monster clan, providing an opportunity for the rest to sneak in. Zhou Chonglu's family and the Flood Witch would take advantage of the gap to break into the Fusang tree in the city. They would use their powerful cultivation to break the seal. According to the information that had been gathered, it was confirmed that there were a total of 3 seals under the Fusang tree. As long as these 3 seals were broken, the Zhu Wu would be able to escape by themselves. No matter how long the Zhu Wu had been sealed, no matter how much strength they had lost, as long as the Zhu Wu escaped, they would definitely be able to break out of the encirclement and escape unscathed with their combined strength. In that case, the crux of the matter would be the 3 seals. Then the next question would be who would break the seal, Zhou Chonglu's family or the Flood Witch. The monster clan will definitely fight back when they realize that the seal has been touched. The 3 of us will try our best to hold on for half an hour. Xiao Duo and Nian will go in and break the seal. They have a lot of trump cards. They will have a much higher chance of breaking the seal than us. After half an hour, no matter whether the seal is broken or not, whether the plan is successful or not, we must retreat immediately to protect ourselves. The Flood Witch said in a deep voice. Okay, it's decided. Half an hour. It was the most time that the Flood Witch, Father Zhuo, and Mother Zhuo could give them when they were restrained outside. The 5 great sorcerers had used all their strength and methods to destroy the monster clan without scruples. They believed that one of the 3 giants of the monster clan would have to send out a great sorcerer. After half an hour, the great sorcerers who were causing chaos outside would inevitably be suppressed. Once the Donghuang Demon Emperor and the Demon Empress gathered on the other side, the Flood Witch and the others would also be suppressed. After all, this was the base camp of the monster clan, the core area, where the elites of the monster clan gathered. To rescue the ancestral sorcerer in such a place, any kind of conspiracy or disguise would be useless and useless. The only way was to attack by force. Half an hour was already all the time that could be bought. It was the limit. After the plan was set, the great sorcerer nodded and waved his hand. Then, like a meteor, he fell directly from the sky. Duwu followed him at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. Wind Emperor Dan Kong followed closely behind and landed on the ground as well. The great fire shaman was like a meteorite, smashing down desperately. He even added his fastest movement speed to the momentum of his fall. At the same time, his strongest spiritual power burst out, and a sharp and shrill sound burst out in the air. The great sorcerer turned into a meteor, and rushed directly to the protective shield of the monster peacock city. Boom! The whole monster peacock city was shocked by this sudden impact. It was no longer stable and shook violently. Boom, boom, boomed out a corner of the monster peacock city was suddenly engulfed in flames, and everything was red. On the other side, Duwu's poisonous fog swept over like a hurricane. Immediately, people and horses were thrown off their feet, and no one was alive. Screams shook the sky. Wind Emperor Jin Lin and Dan Kong, 2 followed Duwu and 1 followed the great sorcerer. Each of them activated their own special attributes and started a massacre. Countless buildings collapsed, and smoke and dust filled the sky. It was an unprecedented mess. Enemy attack. With a sharp roar, countless flying demons covered the entire sky. The fastest ones were a group of black eagles. The eagles spread their wings, like clouds in the sky, and instantly blocked everyone's line of sight towards the monster peacock city. Then, starlight flickered, and many monster clan monster gods rushed out of the sky. Which scoundrel dares to be so rash? Zhou Chonglu's family and the Flood Witch were already below the clouds, calmly watching the chaos in the monster peacock city. Although there was chaos, the monster clan army coming from all directions was not chaotic. Instead, they started to encircle and suppress in an orderly manner. Another roar sounded, Imperial City Army, Heavenly Cycle Constellations, listen to my command. The Flood Witch's expression changed. Kuan-Pang. Why is Kuan-Pang here? Isn't he overseeing the west of the Monster Clan continent? Why is he here? This is not good. The Flood Witch's expression changed again and became extremely ugly. Kuan-Pang should be overseeing the Thunder Eagle City now. This news was absolutely true. They had confirmed it several times, and it could not be wrong. In fact, this plan was set up based on this. Now that he suddenly appeared here, the Monster Clan's peak combat power suddenly increased from 3 to 4. This was not only unexpected, but also a devastating blow to the plan. Lai Hua and the rest have already made their move. The arrow has already been knocked, so let's fight. Since we're here, we have to give it a try. As long as Xiao Duo and Nian can break the seal, as long as Zhu Wu can escape, the plan can still be carried out. Zhou Changlu waved his hand and gave his decision. The Flood Witch could not say this. If the plan succeeded, it would naturally be beneficial to the Umno Alliance. But for the astral souls, it would only be a relative benefit, but not an absolute benefit. Now that the situation had changed, the risk that Zhou Changlu and his wife would have to pay if they continued to attack would multiply. It was reasonable for them to stop the plan and withdraw. However, Zhou Changlu and his wife were still willing to take the risk and choose to continue attacking. This huge favor must be received by the Umno Alliance and engraved in their hearts. Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaonian did not say anything. They turned into two shadows, one white and one black, and rushed down. In one breath, they rushed to the back of the monster palace, where the Fusang Divine Tree seemed to be burning all the time. Suddenly, the Fusang Divine Tree shone brightly, as if countless suns had suddenly risen. It was an automatic attack from the Fusang Divine Tree. As an innate spiritual object, although the Fusang Divine Tree was only a tree, its combat power was limited. However, its spiritual sense was rare in this world and unparalleled in the universe. Probably only the mother of the 9 calabashes, the old calabash vine, could be better. Although Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaonian were invisible and left no traces, the Fusang Divine Tree still sensed the evil thoughts in the first moment and reacted to attack. Tens of thousands of leaves shone in the sky, and countless lights and shadows intertwined, immediately illuminating the figures of Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaonian clearly. Seeing the brilliant light again, 4 figures bounced up from the Fusang Divine Tree, like 4 suns, and came toward them. It was the 4 monster crown princes who had appeared together. One of them was the 9th prince, Ren Jing, whom Zhou Xiaoduo had met once before. The 4 people and 4 swords were all burning with raging flames, cast iron and burning gold. The Soul True Fire was the real deal, the genuine Soul True Fire. Speaking of which, this was the first time Zhou Xiaoduo was greeted by the Grand Sun Primordial Fire other than Xiao. The feeling was both familiar and unfamiliar. Huff, huff, huff. Zhou Xiaonian, who was also very familiar with the Grand Sun Primordial Fire, directly activated the ice flame. The extreme cold went against the flow. In just a moment of contact, the leaves of the Fusang Divine Tree that were fluttering in the air withered and fell. The 4 monster crown princes also shuddered at the same time, and the Grand Sun Primordial Fire was suppressed. It was normal for it to be suppressed. Xiao was very afraid of Zhou Xiaonian, and the degree of her fear for her was even higher than Zhou Xiaoduo. This father only needed to look at her to freeze her. Her Grand Sun Primordial Fire was nothing in front of her, and she would be completely defeated every time. The accident was that even if the four monster crown princes joined forces and had the support of the Fusang divine tree, Shuxiaonian, who had long been familiar with the Grand Sun primordial fire and knew its mysteries, was really not a problem. She suppressed it just like that. He had come prepared, and he had schemed against the unsuspecting. He had done this in advance to the extreme. At the same time, Zhuxiaoduo's 99 cat hammer had also turned into a towering mountain. Boom, boom. The 1,000 souls nightmare hammer, regardless of its head and head, smashed forward. Four loud noises flashed. The four monster crown princes directly flew in four directions, and looked at Zhuxiaoduo, who was wielding a sledgehammer, in horror. The four princes had not seen many people who could directly force four people to retreat in one strike in their lives. They did not expect to see such a freak today. She clearly looked like a human cub. How could she be so violent? Who are you? The ninth prince Ren Jing shouted angrily. Before his voice died away, Zhuxiaonian floated up again, and the spirit-snatching sword emitted millions of ice flowers, which decorated the night sky, and was exceptionally magnificent. Under the illumination of the Grand Sun primordial fire, it was even more gorgeous, beautiful, and crystal clear. The ninth prince knew how powerful it was, and he kept retreating, but his body was still inevitably stained with a few frost flowers. He only felt that the coldness penetrated through his body and went straight to the bottom of his heart, and he could not help but shiver. As a three-legged golden crow, there was actually a day when he was shivering from the cold. This was the first time something like this had ever happened. The ice spirit squatted on the spirit-snatching sword obediently, and blew a breath of cold air on Ren Jing's face. Ren Jing screamed, only to feel that his face seemed to be frozen stiff. Frozen. What the hell? After the angry roar, he hurriedly turned into a three-legged golden crow and flew up, and a large amount of Grand Sun primordial fire surged and burned in his body, and he felt a trace of warmth. Unfortunately, all his movements were predicted by Zhuxiaoduo and Zhuxiaonian. At this moment, the two of them were standing under the Fusang divine tree. According to the flood's teaching, they used the power of soft water and stomped on the steel-like ground with their feet. Instantly, dense ripples appeared on the ground, and one of the ripples was swaying endlessly, which was particularly conspicuous. Obviously, it was constantly attacked and sealed, and at this moment, it was a two-way influence caused by the convergence of the internal and external forces. It's here. Zhuxiaoduo flew over, and was ready to attack. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Millions of ice flowers fell like a snowstorm. Zhuxiaonian and his sword blocked the four demon crown princes. Swoosh. Swoosh. Sword chi revolved around the Fusang purewood. The four demon crown princes stared helplessly, and they had to be careful not to be contaminated by the ice flowers. If they were accidentally stained, they would have to consume a lot of natal true fire to dispel it. At the right time, three strange lights, one white, one black, and one purple gold, flashed out from Zhuxiaoduo's body and fell on the Fusang divine tree. It was a girl and two boys, three little children, sitting on the branches and swinging their legs. Old tree, they are fighting, let's not care, okay? The purple gold gourd was very polite, but he was holding his original purple gold gourd in his hand. The mouth of the gourd had been opened, and smoke had begun to come out from it. This is the Samadhi true fire of Master. I know you have a fire spiritual root, and you can absorb all the fire of heaven and earth to nourish yourself, but I don't know if you can withstand my Samadhi true fire. Why don't we try it today? This was an undisguised threat. The Fusang divine tree sighed, there's no need to try. How can I withstand the divine fire of the Eight Visions Temple? Do whatever you want, just don't destroy my life root. The purple gold gourd blinked, which life root? You still have a life root. The Fusang divine tree was furious, ignorant child. You. Puff, puff, puff. 3 sparks appeared. The old tree swallowed its anger, whatever you say. Anyway, whatever life root. As long as it doesn't break. As it spoke, it suddenly screamed. A large section of its life root had been smashed by Swishaoduo's sledgehammer. Instantly, its old face trembled in pain, and it could not continue speaking. In a flash, a cave appeared on the ground. Just as Swishaoduo was about to enter, he suddenly felt a ray of light shining on his head. At this moment, he actually felt that it was extremely difficult to move. Swishaoduo instinctively turned his head and saw a golden-robed man holding a gourd a few thousand feet away. A small person appeared on the gourd, and a ray of white light shot out from the gourd's eyes, nailing his head. The golden-robed man's eyes were filled with shock. He looked at Swishaoduo, who was still able to turn his head to look at him after being nailed to the gourd by the white light. He did not dare to delay and hurriedly bowed slightly. "Baby, please turn around." Chapter 1386. That white light started to spin. The Jiu Bai and the purple golden gourd shouted at the same time, "Xiao Huang." Swishaoduo felt a sharp pain in his neck, as if it was going to break at any time. In a fit of rage, he hammered the white light and scolded, "Spin your ass." With a loud bang, that white light trembled slightly from the impact, but it still pinned Swishaoduo in place. Even with Swishaoduo's current cultivation base and strength, he was unable to break free. Instead, the piercing pain in his neck became even more intense. Damn, is he trying to take away my title as the leader of the 6 sons? With that thought, Swishaoduo panicked. He immediately activated Zhu Rong's primordial fire, which was about to reach the phenomenal stage. In an instant, the primordial fire surged into the sky. Zhu Rong! Damn it! The Fusang divine tree screamed. In a panic, it pulled out all of its roots, then rushed out as fast as it could. However, the Zhu Rong true fire came way too abruptly, and it didn't manage to escape from being burned by the fire. The Fusang heavenly tree did not dare to be slow. It quickly mobilized the Grand Sun primordial fire all over its body to counterattack Zhu Rong's primordial fire. The two flames collided with each other. When it finally extinguished Zhu Rong's primordial fire, the giant trent's legs were already charred black. The Fusang heavenly tree was so frightened that it started to sweat. What is this? What is this? On the other side, the golden-robed man's primordial spirit was connected to the white light. After being hammered by Swishaoduo, the white light was shaken. Finally, he could not take it anymore and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale. The golden-robed man was obviously a ruthless person. He still refused to stop. His body was covered in flames, and he spat out another mouthful of blood onto the gourd. He shouted, "Treasure, please turn around." Zhu Rong's primordial fire had already wrapped around the white light and was burning intensely like never before. On the gourd in the hands of the golden-robed man, the illusory and incorporeal figure felt Zhu Rong's primordial fire and actually trembled continuously. The dense qi revealed a sense of resistance. However, when the golden-robed man spat out blood essence for the 3rd time and shouted, "Please turn around, treasure," he was still forced to slowly turn around. At the same time, a wave of sadness suddenly rushed into everyone's heart. Swishaoduo forcefully twisted his neck and directly detonated the elemental fire art at full force. All flames converged and reappeared in the mortal world. Open! The white light flashed and broke. The golden-robed man screamed as he was sent flying backward, blood spurting out of his mouth. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan quickly followed up with an icy sword qi, piercing through one of the golden-robed man's shoulders. Her graceful figure flashed and directly reached out to grab the gourd in the hands of the golden-robed man. The gourd was already gone. The golden-robed man dodged in a panic and rolled on the ground. He was slashed by Zhuo Xiaoyan until he was covered in blood. He shouted anxiously, "Are you all watching?" The other 3 crown princes and the other demon experts roared at the same time and flew over. Zhuo Xiaoyan retreated and nailed her feet to the side of the cave. Her sword qi turned into a blizzard and came down from above. The entire demon palace turned into a snowfield. This was the coldest day in the history of the demon palace, which had always been filled with the grand sun primordial fire. On the other side, Zhuo Xiaoduo had already flipped over and entered the cave. Although he saw the yellow gourd, he also heard the calls of Bai and the other small gourds. However, in the midst of a fierce battle, every minute and every second was precious. He could only let go of some minor details and focus on breaking the seal and saving Zhu Wu. Zhuo Xiaoyan forced the 4 crown princes to retreat with her sword. Then, she followed behind Zhuo Xiaoduo and jumped down. The Emperor's aura shook the sky. Demon Emperor Jun arrived. "Who are you?" The Flood Witch laughed loudly. "Junior of the Wu people, Flood, greets the Demon Emperor." 2 hammers appeared. The 1,000 Souls Nightmare hammers were fully unleashed. However, this time, the Great Witch of the Flood had never done such a thing before. The moment the battle started, he unleashed all of his combat power and opened fire. "Junior." Demon Emperor Jun smiled faintly. A sword suddenly appeared in his hand. With a clang, the sword that didn't look very heavy blocked Flood's big hammer without any effort. Although he seemed calm, Emperor Jun's body couldn't help but tremble slightly. He said in surprise, "You're from the Wu people of Zhu Wu's realm." "The Wu people have Zhu Wu again." "Not bad, not bad." The Flood Witch trembled all over. "Your Majesty, please enlighten me." Even if it was Zhu Wu's realm, there was still a big gap between the initial stage and the peak stage. It was said that only Zhu Wu, who had reached the peak of Zhu Wu's realm, could compete with the Demon Emperor. The gap between the rest and the Demon Emperor was not small. Otherwise, the Wu people's 12 Zhu Wus wouldn't have fought so fiercely against the Demon Emperor. In the end, many Zhu Wus were sealed. As expected, even though he had reached the level of Ancestral Sorcerer and had consumed the 9 transformations golden elixir that Zhuo Zhanglu had given him, causing his strength to increase once again, he was still suppressed by the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor laughed. "Enlighten me." That's good, that's good." He understood the true meaning of the Flood Witch's words. "Enlighten me. I'm a junior of the younger generation. I'm asking you, the Demon Emperor, for advice as a junior. Do you have the nerve to use tricks like He Tu and Luo Shu?" Let's fight with our own strength. Let's see if you, the great senior, have the strength to make me, a junior of the Wu people, admire you. The true cultivators of the primordial world had their own profound cultivation abilities. They were all excellent and had their own trump cards. However, their Dharma treasures were also a huge highlight. They were even things that they relied on that exceeded their own capabilities. For example, if Tai Donghuang didn't have the Bell of Chaos, his strength would be reduced by more than 30%. Another example would be Yao Huangjun. If he had used the He Tu and the Book of the Luo, he would have been easily sucked in by Hong Shuwei, Zhuo Zhanglu and his wife, who were only quasi-saints. Even if the 3 of them could work together to break out of the encirclement, it would be impossible without a certain amount of time. Once the 3 of them were trapped, Donghuang, the Demon Empress, and the Demon Master could easily control Zhuo and Zhuo in the Demon Emperor Palace. Even if the three of them didn't do it personally, the group of demon immortals and the demon crown prince were enough to deal with Zhuo. Therefore, the Flood Witch was willing to lower herself, admit that she was a junior, and use words to control Demon Emperor June. This was of great significance to this battle. As a great senior, Demon Emperor June had to have this demeanor. With his status, if he had to use He Tu and Luo Shu to deal with a junior, it was simply he couldn't afford to lose face. At that moment, the Flood Witch used all her strength to activate the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer and started a great battle with the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor was relaxed, as if he had no intention to stop Zhuo from destroying the restriction. This relaxation didn't seem to be fake at all. He completely ignored it, and only allowed the four crown princes to lead the palace guards to surround Zhuo and Zhuo. He didn't care about the battle situation, and the feeling of letting things go was too obvious. The Flood Witch's heart was moved, but her hands didn't stop. Suddenly, she said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty Demon Emperor, have you been prepared for us to rescue Zhu Wu?" Suddenly, her heart sank. If the demon clan was prepared, it would be difficult to achieve their goal. But now, it seemed that the demon clan was prepared. Even the Kunping Demon Master, who was hundreds of thousands of miles away, had secretly returned. This was simply too obvious. The Demon Emperor was still calmly neutralizing the Flood Witch's continuous attacks. He said indifferently, "Of course, I have been prepared. Dijiang Xianming and the others are sealed here. As long as the Wu people know, how can they not take action?" However, the current situation of the world of great battles has already been decided. It is necessary to let them cross the mortal world again and participate in this immeasurable calamity. Regarding this, I have been prepared. The Flood Witch sensitively grasped the main point. As long as the Wu people know. Your Majesty, how do you know that the Wu people already know? The Demon Emperor said indifferently, "When the Wu people passed away, Zhu Wu's legacy couldn't be inherited. You don't even know the cause of this karmic bond. Someone told you that there is a heavenly mystery to guide me. What is so hard to understand?" The Flood Witch wielded her hammer as if she was flying. Her combat power increased by another level. She said coldly, "Now that the heavenly mystery is chaotic, even if there is a karmic bond, Your Majesty, without accurate information, it is rare for you to be so calm." The sword in the Demon Emperor's hand shone brightly. The sword light shot straight to the sky. He still said indifferently, "Gonggang Dijiang and the others may understand my calmness, but you don't. You don't deserve to understand." Both inside and outside the city were fighting. Flames were everywhere. It was chaotic. At the right time, a beam of light suddenly surged. The Demon Empress Shiha rushed over. "Is it the remnants of the Wu people?" The sword light flashed. Wu Yuding flashed out from the void. She said, "Your Majesty, the men are fighting. We women are here to play." Shiha's palm hit Wu Yuding's sword head. She said indifferently, "Who are you? How dare you compare yourself to me? You are quite brave." Shiha was graceful and elegant, a national beauty, while Wu Yuding was also a peerless beauty, a beauty capable of causing the downfall of a city. Although their battle prowess was inevitably slightly inferior, just based on their appearances, it was hard to tell who was better. They were like orchids in spring and chrysanthemums in autumn. "I am Wu Yuding." Wu Yuding said indifferently, "People call me the Rain Demon." Shiha's face became serious and complicated. "Astral Souls, the wife of the Sky Patrolling Minister. Your Majesty, I am honored that you know our names. I remember you, but not because you are famous." Shiha's attack slowed down. She said softly, "Do you have a son?" The one called Duo. Then what? Shiha hesitated. After a while, she bit her lip and said, "Is there a three-legged golden crow by your son's side?" Wu Yuting was stunned when she heard that. Wu Yuting was also a veteran. Although her strength had improved, she knew that she was no match for the Demon Empress. However, she came out to ask for a battle. On one hand, it was dangerous. On the other hand, she had to stop the Demon Empress. On the other hand, she knew how the three-legged golden crows fought. She was also familiar with the Grand Sun Primordial Fire. If the Demon Empress was too careless and thought that she was bullying the weak with the Grand Sun Primordial Fire, Wu Yuting was confident that she could catch the Demon Empress by surprise. She would let the Demon Empress know why the flowers were red. The human race was not to be bullied. But now, the Demon Empress knew about her son. She even knew about her son's relationship with Xiao. How could she not be prepared? She shouldn't have known. Shiha sighed softly. She didn't need to say anything. Everything was contained in that sigh. Chapter 1387. After traveling with the Grand Master of Heaven, Shihi, Di Jun, and the others already knew about Xiaoduo's name, identity, and background. In fact, his identity and background could not be a secret to such a mighty figure. It could not be hidden. After Shihi found out about Xiaoduo's identity, she immediately understood that her son was definitely related to this kid. However, because of the Grand Master of Heaven's warning, the Demon Empress and even the Demon Emperor Donghuang were moved. This kid is the successor of Ren School chosen by my eldest senior brother. He is the representative with full authority. He also has a deep relationship with Jie School. Your Majesty, if you want to do anything, you have to think twice before doing anything. Don't blame me for not warning you in the future. With that sentence, Shihi could already confirm. Her son must have a huge karmic relationship with Xiaoduo. When she returned and investigated Xiaoduo's information, she quickly found more clues and was even more convinced of this point. Back then, the Crown Prince's Academy did not split up but stayed in the ancestral land. Back then, the seventh prince, Yiqiong, had died in the Crown Prince's Academy. Now, his aura had appeared. All of this showed that he was related to the astral souls. Under such circumstances, those who were not blessed could not obtain the seventh prince's follower. Xiaoduo could meet all the relevant conditions. He was a young hero who improved rapidly. He was a genius of a generation and a genius. He was regarded as the successor of the Grand Pure One and had formed a karmic bond with the Grand Pure One. He also had the help of the primordial beginning. He was also related to the three Pure Ones. He was the son of the leader of the astral souls and the adopted son of the leader of the Wu people. Along the way, he had all kinds of magical and awesome things. Along the way, he had encountered many fortuitous encounters and gained all kinds of magical abilities. If such a person was not the son of destiny, who else could be? Only this kind of son of providence could possibly find traces of the seventh crown prince on this divided continent of the ancestral land. Furthermore, the seventh crown prince had clearly been confirmed to be dead, yet he was still able to revive. How could such a heaven-defying fate and resurrection be facilitated by an ordinary person? In summary, if someone had the ability to obtain the favor of the seventh prince, that person had to be Xiaoduo. Even if it was taken as a pet, was it so easy to take a three-legged golden crow as a pet? Based on all the above, Shiha had come to a conclusion long ago. This time, when she suddenly saw Wu Yuting, Shiha asked this question after careful consideration. Then, she went straight to the point. If he were to beat around the bush, he would only make himself even more confused. He might as well go straight to the point. Yes meant yes, and no meant no. They were all high-level cultivators, so they had some dignity, or rather, some moral integrity. Wu Yuding took a deep breath and said, "The Demon Empress is indeed the Demon Empress. You have sharp eyes and hit the nail on the head." The Demon Empress immediately became excited. Even the sword moves in her hands became a little messy. After a while, she said nervously, "Little Sister Wu, it's their men who beat them up. Let's find a place to talk." As a mother, when she heard the news about her son, she was so excited that she didn't care about anything else. It was already the Demon Empress quality that she didn't forget herself. Wu Yuding was surprised. "You don't care about the seal here." The Demon Empress was one of the top powerhouses of the demon race. Wu Yuding stepped forward bravely. Her biggest hope was to delay her for a while to buy time for Zhou Xiaoduo and his wife. They would kill each other when they had the chance. At the very least, this was instilled in people's minds. However, the Demon Empress's first sentence was so earth-shattering. The battle between the shamans and demons was a battle of life and death. The demons were powerful, but the Wu people were second. The Wu people were born with strong physiques. Later, the 12 Zhu Wu dominated the world and dozens of shamans dominated the world. Naturally, they wanted to fight for a place and become the main characters of the world. The Demon Empress Shihi said lightly, therefore, they fought as soon as they came. However, although the battle with the Wu people was fierce, it was the only battle in so many years that they fought to their heart's content without any worries. Everything was decided by the outcome of the battle. There were no conspiracies or schemes between the two sides. Both sides fought as soon as the battle was announced. It was very simple. The Wu people's shamans died in our hands, and they did not complain. Our demon gods died in the hands of the Wu people, and they also left with a smile. There's no unwillingness, no vengeance that will last for generations. We were all from the same era, and our levels were similar. We would not bully the weak. As a Zenith Heaven Realm cultivator, we would never attack a Dao integration cultivator. We could not afford to lose face. Since we were all at the same level, life was life, and death was death. Shihi smiled bitterly. In the end, the Wu people were defeated. The remaining 9 Zhu Wu wanted to commit suicide and accept the fate of the losers. However, Di Jun and Tai felt that it was a pity, so they proposed to seal them. They announced their deaths to the outside world, but in fact, they accepted the fate of the losers. They were indeed upright heroes. The future was just as we thought. From then on, the whole Eldritch world became a world of conspiracies. All kinds of schemes, all kinds of discomforts, all kinds of instigation, and all kinds of alienation made us physically and mentally exhausted. Even the Kun Peng was almost ruined by the scheme. He was betrayed by his friends and family, and he died. Damn it, the ending is approaching, but I have more and more ideas. I really want to knock myself out with the wine bottle. The wine in it. Chapter 1388. Although we monsters do not fight against the heavens and earth like the Wu people and regard fighting as the most important thing for survival, we monsters also believe that the bigger fist is the louder reason, and that strength is the most important truth. Therefore, fighting against the Wu people is especially satisfying. However, although the duration of the witchcraft calamity was short, it still caused great damage to the monster race. If not for the fact that Zhu Wu was a man of honor, he would admit defeat once he lost and did not continue to fight. Just the self-destruction of Zhu Wu was enough to drag us and Dong Huang down with him. How could we not know the severity of the situation? Therefore, if you give me a peach, I will give you a jade in return. Back then, sealing the ancestral sorcerer was already the limit. It was just a means to hide from the eyes of the world, and it was also a means to let the shamans and demons stop the war. Looking at it now, the descendants of all branches of the sorcerer tribe were still around, and each of them had their own opportunities. For example, the Great Flood sorcerer, who was inherited from the ancestral sorcerer Gonggong, could actually advance to the level of ancestral sorcerer with his own comprehension. How could it not be amazing? Also, the monster race has experienced many catastrophes. Not only me and my wife, Dong Huang, and the monster master are still alive, most of the 365 monster deities are still alive. This is the cause and effect of the witchcraft calamity. The more Wu Yuting listened, the more shocked she became. So this was the truth of the witchcraft calamity that had been passed down since ancient times. Just like what the demon empress said, if the Wu people had continued to fight against the higher-ups of the monster race when they lost, the most direct result would have been the destruction of Zhu Wu of the Wu people. However, it would also have taken away the monster emperor and monster empress Dong Huang, the monster master, and a considerable part of the monster deities. However, if that was the case, in the immeasurable catastrophes that followed, the monster race and the Wu people would have been weakened. How could they escape the fate of being destroyed by other forces? Even if there were still fish that escaped the net, they would not be able to rise up again and fight for the main character of the world. The demon empress continued, the witch demon cataclysm was won by the demon race. However, after the cataclysm, the investiture god's cataclysm, and the journey to the west cataclysm, which symbolized the rise of the Western sect. After many calculations, the demon race was always in the calculations and was constantly weakened. I was sitting at home for no reason and was suddenly bitten. I'm really tired. I'm getting more and more annoyed by this kind of endless calamity. So, we followed the Tao ancestors' advice and withdrew from the conflict. Facts have proven that if we monster clans do not want to retreat and try our best to hold on, we will only be seen as the target of the other clans. We will definitely be targeted to the point of extinction. Even if we are not afraid, who wants to fight in such an atmosphere of conspiracy and be ground to death by a blunt knife bit by bit? Especially after experiencing the battle between pure men like the Great War with the Wu people, when faced with other schemes, we were bound everywhere and were always furious because of being schemed against by others. Everyone felt aggrieved because of the losses, but they did not know how to deal with it. If they played mind games with others, they would be beaten to death in minutes. Shiha recalled the grievances during that time and could not help but sigh. Her words were full of sorrow. My 10 sons were originally blood brothers. They were so close that they could give in to each other for anything. Moreover, my 10 sons never coveted the position of the Demon King. Everyone knows that the position of the Demon King will end with Di Jun sitting on it for thousands of years. However, after the Great War between the shamans and demons, the monster clans obtained the destiny and established the heavenly court. However, not many years later, the brothers began to scheme against each other. God knows how they were instigated. Then, it evolved to the point where they could not tolerate each other like fire and water. 7th brother died in the Crown Prince Academy when the 10 princes were fighting for power and profit at the most brutal time. Demon Empress Shiha looked up at the sky and sighed. The reason why we were willing to separate the monster continent and seal this world was very simple. We did not want to continue to be schemed against and be destroyed by all kinds of schemes. Wu Yuting put herself in their shoes and thought about it. She also felt a chill down her spine. If it were her, she would have fought with a bunch of straightforward people for thousands of years. Everyone would fight at the slightest disagreement. You fight 10 people, I fight 10 people. It was a fair fight. The bigger the fist, the bigger the argument, and the winner could make the decision. Then, one day, this group of people suddenly disappeared, and a new group of opponents was given to you. Each and every one of them was a schemer who pursued the theory of conspiracy and trickery. If they did not scheme against you, they would not fight you. Wouldn't you be at a disadvantage until you died with grievances? No wonder the demon empress had such an expression. No one would be able to stand it. 10 blood-related brothers who grew up together were instigated to turn against each other, let alone others. At that time, the demon race made a prompt decision to leave the ancestral land. It was a wise decision, but it was also a coward's decision. If I can't out-scheme you, can I leave? This isn't right. How could the 10 princes be instigated to this extent? Wu Yuding was confused. The demon emperor ruled the world and ruled the demon court. He had a long lifespan. The princes didn't have any chance to succeed him, right? Come to think of it, if one day even His Majesty the demon emperor perishes, then the so-called demon heavenly court will definitely cease to exist. This is a logic that even I, an outsider, can understand. If the 10 princes don't, how can they still fight? Shiha rested her forehead on her hand and said, "That's how it used to be." The 10 little bastards all knew it. But after they were let out for a while, they suddenly changed. And none of them could tell why they changed their minds. Everything was so muddle-headed. There was no reason. Shiha also felt bad. It was true that she was the empress of the demon race, but her true nature was no different from the demon emperor Jun Dong Huang Tai Yi. They were both straightforward. She couldn't understand such twists and turns and couldn't be bothered to think about it. Of course, she couldn't understand. How could such a simple and straightforward reason be able to instigate her sons? But this was something that should have been impossible, yet it had happened. And after that, the princes were all confused. Why did she suddenly become confused? Why did she have to fight for the throne? Why did she have to fight for it? Why did she have to fight for the throne? Was she bewitched by Ying? After so many years of self-exile, the demon race finally straightened out their sons. This was also one of the main reasons why the 3 leaders of the demon race reacted so violently to the instigation of their relationship with the Wu people. Wu Yuding sighed along with her. Shiha couldn't hold back her anger anymore. However, she knew that she couldn't blame Shiha for being calmer than she was. As a mother, she couldn't control her emotions so easily. "I don't know." The golden crow by your son's side. Shiha asked carefully, "What does he look like?" Wu Yuding said, "Xiao and I. My son looks like a dog, but he's terrible at naming. He's called the golden crow Xiao. I've always treated him like a treasure and treated him like a son. The last time I saw him, he was already very handsome. I heard that he could already transform. He looks like a chubby 7 or 8 years old child. His combat ability is especially good. He's already in the origin realm." Wu Yuding hadn't entered the Tower of Empyrean Destruction for a while. She had never seen Zhao's youthful appearance after transforming. Her impression of him was still that chubby and very lovable figure. As for the phrase, "treat him like a son," it was a preparation for a rainy day. It was a foreshadowing to deal with the demon empress. Then, Shiha's eyes welled up with tears. "Is he good?" "Very good, very obedient, very lovable." Wu Yuding said "very" 3 times in a row. Shiha's lips curled into a gentle smile. Then, her face darkened. She said, "Your son is really lucky. The golden crow is an innate divine creature. He actually took it as a pet." Wu Yuding understood the deeper meaning of her words. She said calmly, "Your Majesty, what are you talking about? If Xiao hadn't met my son, he might not have been able to escape the tribulation and be reborn in this world. As for the pet, it's even more ridiculous. When Xiao Duo hatched the three-legged golden crow with his natal fire element, the first thing the golden crow saw when it opened its eyes was Xiao Duo. It automatically called him mommy. My poor son, a young man, has been the mother of a golden crow for so many years. Tell me. Automatically calling him mommy. A young man, has been the mother of a golden crow for so many years. Tell me. Here's the place to reason. Shiha's face turned red and white. None of these topics were easy to answer. However, she was also able to put her heart back into her stomach. Wu Yuding pointed out a very important point. When the golden crow hatched with his natal fire element, the first thing it saw when it opened its eyes was Xiao Duo and treated him like a son. As the first three-legged golden crow in the world, Shiha understood what this meant. The golden crow had escaped the tribulation and was reborn. The first thing it saw when it opened its eyes was indeed a natural sense of kinship. In this way, the pet contract connection she was most worried about would definitely not exist. Calling a boy mommy. The expression on Shiha's face became very interesting again. She gently bit her rosy lips with her pearly white teeth, and the expression in her eyes changed. Yes, he calls my son mommy and my daughter daddy. This relationship is a mess, but he doesn't change. This is the way he wants to address me. Wu Yuding looked helpless. Every time he sees me, he sweetly calls grandma to come up and ask for kisses, hugs. Sigh. This little kid is always so naughty, but I like him from the bottom of my heart. This little grandson of mine. He's too naughty. She sounded naughty and seemed to be reprimanding him, but she was beaming with joy. Anyone could see how much Wu Yuding liked her little grandson. Calling this son mommy. Calling a daughter daddy. Why did he call Wu Yuding grandma? Shouldn't he call her grandpa? What am I thinking? Is this the key point? The key point now is the relationship and seniority. Shiha's face was like a dye shop, with all kinds of colors, green, white, red, purple, blue, and black. My son has become someone else's little grandson. Little brat, what should I do if you call me that? After all this time, I've summoned a mother-in-law into the house. There's a father-in-law outside. Oh my God. Shiha's face suddenly darkened. Chapter 1389. Cough. Shiha coughed. Wu Yuding kept a straight face and pretended that she didn't know anything. Demon Empress, you are. It's nothing. I caught a cold from the wind a few days ago. No matter how graceful and elegant Shiha was, she didn't want to speak at this moment. She said something that no one would believe, but it wasn't a complete lie. After all, her face was really a little hot. Sister, what did you say that kid's name was? Xiao. My son is good in every way. He's handsome and has a high cultivation level. His name is terrible. He's such a good kid, but he's called Xiao. I don't know what he thought. Xiao. Shiha couldn't help but be fascinated. She didn't feel offended at all. There was no need to say more. Just the name Xiao was enough to prove a lot. Most people would name their children Xiao. It was an obvious nickname. They would treat their children like a treasure and dote on and protect them. Shiha was also a mother. How could she not know this when she put herself in her mother's shoes? Xiao is the treasure of the whole family now. Wu Yuding said that Zhao's treatment was 10 times better. As for how Swiss Xiao Duo trained him, how he ran around the Tower of Annihilation, how he was beaten up by Swiss Xiao Duo, how he was beaten up by Swiss Xiao Duo, how he was often burned into a bald bird by the essence fire art. These were definitely things that couldn't be said. As for the rest, how Xiao was mischievous, how weird he was, how he swallowed resources and ruined countless spirit plants, spirit fruits, spirit seedlings, and spirit roots. These were all things that could be said and talked about in a big way. Wu Yuding, who also had the 9 feet higher sky attribute, wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Also, how he pecked little Gigi with his little sharp beak and how he drilled a hole in someone's butt. These were things that could be said selectively. Demon Empress Shiha laughed heartily. To know so clearly what kind of life her son was living, how carefree and unrestrained he was, how he could do whatever he wanted, how relaxed and happy he was. Shiha felt very satisfied and envious just by listening to it. She really hoped that she could participate in this beautiful period of time. That would be such a happy period of time. By the way, he has a sword with him, right? Shiha smiled, looking much more relaxed. Yes, that sword is Her Majesty Empress Wa's personal sword. Wu Yuding said blandly, since it is the sword of Her Majesty Empress Wa, it is the holy weapon that should be worshipped by our clan. Wu Yuding was telling the truth. Aside from being a primordial divine artifact, the Huang sword was a genuine treasure of virtue. It was also Empress Nua's personal sword. Aside from being a saint of the Yao race, Goddess Nua was also the mother of humanity. She had always been worshipped by humans. Ever since the Huang sword entered the Tower of Void Extermination, it had been recuperating and nourishing itself with countless resources. Occasionally, it would come out to kill enemies spontaneously. The Huang sword was originally Empress Wa's personal weapon and had an immortal sword spirit. It could barely be used in a short period of time. Swiss Xiao Duo and Swiss Xiaoyan also had their own weapons. Although the Huang sword was good, it was not taken seriously by Swiss Xiao Duo. For Swiss Xiao Duo and Swiss Xiaoyan, whether it was the cat spirit sword, the spirit snatching sword, or the 9x9 cat hammer, they were irreplaceable, no matter how easy it was to use them or how easy it was to use them. Not to mention that these weapons had been nurtured step by step since the two were at their weakest. They had a deep relationship with each other. During this period of time, they had encountered a lot of opportunities. They had drunk blood and seized lives, weathered storms, and seen the vicissitudes of life. They had vaguely developed the embryonic form of transforming into divine artifacts. As long as they kept using them for a long time, one day, they would surpass the Huang sword in all aspects. Therefore, Swiss Xiao Duo and Swiss Xiaoyan had never thought of using the Huang sword from the beginning to the end. Otherwise, if either of them wanted to, the Huang sword would have undoubtedly changed hands since it had been in the Tower of Void Extermination for a long time. Even if it used to be Empress Wa's divine weapon. Now that he was talking about it in front of Shiha, it was of great significance. Shiha smiled more and more happily. Her attitude toward Wu Yuding became much more cordial in an instant. In particular, Shiha was very sure of one thing: perhaps Wu Yuding and the others had already guessed Zhao's identity, but they didn't know it for a long time before. Because the primitive age and the current historical knowledge of the astral souls had been separated for too long. Then there was a problem. They didn't know the identity of your son, but they still treated him like that. There was only one reason: they really liked him. They didn't have any other purpose. And what was more rare was that they didn't want anything, not even a supreme treasure like the Huang sword, a virtuous saint weapon. Didn't that mean that they didn't have any intention of scheming? It was an undeniable fact. They didn't want such a great temptation. What kind of spirit was this? What kind of moral integrity was this? After learning about these things, Shiha felt that if she still had doubts about this family, even if it wasn't intolerable, at least there was no evil smell. If she put herself in his shoes, she knew that she couldn't remain indifferent to a divine weapon like the sword of Empress Envoi. Sister's family is really. She had praised from the bottom of her heart. But halfway through his words, he suddenly felt awkward. Her son called her grandma, but she called her sister. Based on seniority. Did she have to call her aunt? But who could afford to lose face like this? That I'm the dignified demon empress, the first batch of innate life forms. Other than the Tao ancestor, even the group of saints were at most peers. When had they ever bowed down to him? Wu Yuding's cultivation isn't weak now, but compared to me, she's still hundreds of thousands of generations behind. Therefore, when she heard Wu Yuding say that Xiao was naughty, she really felt like slapping her butt. Not only did she not feel the slightest bit of heartache, but she was even more eager to give it a try. She wished that she could give that delicate little butt of hers a good slap with all her might. Little brat, you've made your mother suffer. At this point, she was almost done talking. When Wu Yuding saw that the demon empress was not pleased with herself, she very understandingly said, to be honest, from the beginning, we felt that it was strange. With regards to Xiao Zhao's background, there were many suspicious points. In front of the demon emperor and demon empress, although we are the younger generation, we are also the existence that stands at the peak of the star soul human race. We boast that we are experienced and knowledgeable, but with regards to Xiao Zhao's background, we do not know anything at all. She finally got to the point. Shiha's eyes lit up. Then what do you think? Today's conversation could be said to be the most difficult and indescribable conversation in the Demon Empress' life, but it was also the conversation that she looked forward to the most. Although it was awkward, although she felt conflicted, although she was inexplicably embarrassed, although all of the above were at the extreme. But the joy and comfort in her heart were also at the extreme. As the supreme of the demon race, Shiha had never lowered herself like this in her entire life. She had always been graceful and at ease, the model of the mother of the world. She was so luxurious that people didn't dare to raise their heads. Not to mention being embarrassed or at a loss. Being approachable was already the limit. But today, all of this was broken. When Xiao started to have the ability to breathe the soul true fire, we were already thinking. Wu Yuding said, but at that time, we didn't know what was going on. Even now, we don't understand. Xiao's memory hasn't recovered. Or, when we set off a while ago, Xiao's mind was in a mess for a while. It seemed like her memory was recovering, but not completely. Wu Yuding frowned. We don't have much experience in this area. Naturally, we can't be sure. Let nature take its course. Shiha took a deep breath and said, did you find Xiao in Crown Prince Academy? That day, Xiao Duo did go to Crown Prince Academy to train. But when it comes to the place where he found the Golden Crow egg, it can't be considered Crown Prince Academy. Wu Yuding said, according to Xiao Duo's description, that place is another chaotic world located in Crown Prince Academy. To be honest, his explanation is beyond our understanding. To this day, we still don't understand it. After all, Crown Prince Academy can be considered a paradise, an independent space. Another independent space within an independent space is a chaotic world. At that time, the Astral Souls, the Umno Alliance, and the Tao League couldn't understand it. A chaotic world. Shiha's pretty face darkened. What kind of chaotic world is it? According to Xiao Duo, that chaotic world seems to be suppressed by a mysterious force above Crown Prince Academy. It might not be suppressed, but it's the original chaotic world. Wu Yuding wasn't trying to shirk responsibility. She really didn't know much about Sui Xiaoduo's experience. Although Sui Xiaoduo had bragged many times, bragging about how he was wise and mighty, and how he could traverse the chaos. But Wu Yuding hadn't experienced a real chaotic world.